pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A couple really quick announcements. You'll notice on the agenda for later, there's the ordinance for lost and stolen handguns. That was tabled, and we intend to leave it tabled until such time as the courts and the legislature address the issue. So I just want to let everybody know about that. Also, Commissioner Higgins called and had to be out of town, so he won't be here tonight. Thank you.
Can't speak without coming to the mic.
It's item number Q.
Q, James.
Yes, I'm sorry. My question was it Q? I'm sorry, not
No,
Q, S,
S.
but not T.
No, not T. S.
Thank you.
First item on the agenda is the minutes of the public meeting of March 22nd.
Move to be approved.
Second.
Moved and second. Any comments? Sometimes when I read them, I wonder if I was at the same meeting, but that's okay. That's just me. Moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Executive session was held in the Powys Caucus Room prior to this meeting. We discussed real estate issues, had some discussion about zoning, talked about litigation regarding Mr. Bayshore, and had some personnel discussions regarding uncivil behaviors. The next item is a proclamation for Days of Remembrance. And we have some guests here tonight from Barrack Academy, which is over in my ward. We'll have Dr. Stephen Brown and Ariel Belfer is a student there, senior. I'd like to have them come up to the podium, meet me there. This is a proclamation for Days of Remembrance, Sunday, April 11th through Sunday, April 18th, 2010. Whereas the Holocaust was a state-sponsored systematic prosecution and annihilation of European Jewry by Nazi Germany and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945. Jews were the primary victim. Over 6 million were murdered. Gypsies, the handicapped, and Poles were also targeted for destruction or decimation for racial, ethnic, or national reasons. Millions more, including homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, Soviet prisoners of war, and political dissenters, also suffered grievous oppression and death under Nazi tyranny. Whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibility of individuals, societies, and governments, and whereas we, the people of Radnor Township, should always remember the terrible events of the Holocaust and remain vigilant against hatred, prosecution, and tyranny, and whereas we, the people of Radnor Township, should actively rededicate ourselves to the principles of individual freedom and a just society, and whereas the Days of Remembrance has been set aside for the people of Radnor Township to remember the victims of the Holocaust, as well as to reflect on the need for respect for all peoples, and whereas pursuant to an act of Congress, the United States Holocaust Memorial Council designates the Day of Remembrance of the Victims of the Holocaust to be Sunday, April 11th through Sunday, April 18th, 2010, including the Day of Remembrance known as Yom HaShoah, which is April 11th, 2010. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Radnor Township does hereby proclaim the week of Sunday, April 11th through Sunday, April 18th as Days of Remembrance in memory of the victims of the Holocaust, and in honor of the survivors, as well as the rescuers and liberators, and further proclaim that we, as citizens of Radnor Township, should work to promote human dignity and confront hate wherever it occurs. Resolved this 12th day of April, 2010.
Move the proclamation.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Yes. And Ariel would like to say a few words.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ariel Belfer, and I'm a senior at Jack and Barrack Hebrew Academy. I'm also a third-generation Holocaust survivor. My mother's father and his family lived in Lodz, Poland, at the time that World War II broke out. My grandfather was sent to the Lodz ghetto along with his family, and he was later sent to Auschwitz concentration camp, where he was later liberated. My grandfather, Israel Dubner, fought to survive, and he never gave up. There are many stories that my grandfather shared with me, and I feel that it is now my duty as a third-generation Holocaust survivor to make sure that his story and the stories of all survivors are never forgotten. My grandfather's legacy is what led me to form the Holocaust Education, Action, and Reflection Club at Barrack Hebrew Academy. The goal of this club is to promote the spread of tolerance by connecting our school community and the greater Philadelphia community to the legacy of the Holocaust through personal survivor stories. One of Barrack Hebrew Academy's goals is to graduate young people who have a commitment to Jewish values and to the Jewish community. Barrack encourages students to participate in Jewish life, and my educators have truly inspired me to become a leader in my school in Holocaust education. On May 24th, we will be unveiling the Holocaust Memorial exhibit at our school, comprised of more than 350 student and faculty-made ceramic tiles and 40 drawings created by an 11-year-old girl while she was in the Theresienstadt ghetto. On this day, we will also be planting a tree in memory of Anne Frank. Outside Anne Frank's apartment, where she was hiding throughout the war, grew a large and beautiful tree that Anne looked at often while writing in her diary. This tree was one of the only signs of life and hope for Anne while in hiding, but recently the tree has started to die. In order to help keep Anne's memory alive, we are planting the same type of tree to create a wonderful memorial on our school grounds. These two works of art will become a permanent exhibit in memory of the victims of the Holocaust, to teach tolerance and to teach how important the way that we treat one another is in the world today. I'd like to take the time to thank the Township Commissioners, as I'm extremely honored to be accepting the Radnor Township Holocaust Remembrance Proclamation along with Dr. Brown on behalf of our community. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
Do we have any committee reports for this evening?
Yeah, we're starting community development.
Okay, community development. Donald.
First item is the Wayne Jazz Fest presentation.
Good evening. I'm Diane Turley, President of the Wayne Business Association, and I put up there a copy of our newsletter, which can also be read at waynebusiness.com. And I just wanted to bring to your attention and invite you to the annual awards dinner that we're having this Thursday evening at the Paddock. And also on the back is our next big event, which is the Mad Anthony Colonial Dinner and Minuet Ball, Friday evening, May 7th at the Saturday Club. And you're welcome to come in costume. That being said, I'd like to introduce the committee people for the Mainline Jazz and Food Festival, one of our very successful events in downtown Wayne. Jennifer Baylor and Laura Munich.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Laura Munich.
I'm Jennifer Baylor.
We are the co-founders and producers of the Mainline Jazz and Food Festival, and we're here to talk to you a little bit about the history of the event, and hope that you will be as enthusiastic about what will be the 7th annual event this year as we are. So let's get started. So, as I said, this will be our 7th year. It's a 7-year tradition of inviting people into the community to celebrate what a wonderful town we have and what wonderful offerings we have, not only in dining and art, but also a retail mix on the street. You can see we bring thousands of people. I think at our peak we've had up to 7,000 people who come in and explore our community, not necessarily people who are neighbors. So we're pleased to offer that same mix and an opportunity for people to discover the dining and retail opportunities, and also the wonderful music and art that we will have on offer that day. Family fun and sophisticated entertainment as well. Did we say the date? We did we say the date? No.
June 12th.
June 12th.
This year, Saturday, June 12th, from 11 to 9, on North Wayne Avenue, from Lancaster to West. The street is transformed into a beautiful piazza. Festival goers can stroll through storefronts, artist booths, relax, dine, all to the backdrop of wonderful jazz music.
Yes, we invite some of the region's best jazz talent, marquee entertainers who play in places like Chris's, Ortlieb's, at the Kimmel Center, and who have toured with major artists not only regionally but nationally and internationally as well. We offer a schedule of performers that showcases the diversity of jazz music, from Latin jazz to big band music to contemporary jazz and just about everything in between. Here's some examples of some of our performers. Ayasi Amigos, they're one of the most popular artists. We have them back, I think, just about every year. And this year, you can see how last year was the first year we went into the evening and we had music under the stars, and it really was a wonderful ambiance there on North Wayne Avenue. And we're pleased to continue a partnership that we began last year with the Wayne Arts Center, which adds art to the complement of what we have on offer. And we had about 20 fine artists who came and exhibited and sold their wares, and it added a really nice dimension to the festival last year, and we'll do so again this year.
Yeah, it's the second annual partnership with the Wayne Arts Center. It really added a more refined atmosphere to what's already a terrific mix of retail and restaurants and music in the community. We look forward to bringing this event again to Radnor.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item, Resolution 2010-13, Mainline Jazz Fest and waiver of fees. Mr. Martin, would you explain this to us?
Thank you, Commissioner Curley. Basically, what we did in the past, the board has waived the vendor fee based on the fact that if you did it by individual vendor, this event would not be able to take place. So what we did for you tonight is to break out the total cost of the event to the township in-kind services that we provide, and we are asking for the board's approval to waive those fees as we have in the past, and with your understanding of the costs that are involved with that.
So I move the adoption of Resolution 2010-13.
And the resolution also calls for closing the road permit, North Wayne Avenue, on that date. So I'll second the motion.
Motion moved and seconded. Discussion amongst the commissioners. In our packet, we were also provided with information regarding the cost to the township that would be considered in kind. It's a not insignificant sum, and it is not budgeted. So where are we going to find the money?
Well, you know, in the past we've done these events, and it's something the budget has absorbed. Matt can give you a little more detail in reference to this year. They do pay reimburse some of that cost per the agreement. Matt, if you can, I think up to a certain amount they are capped, $2,200.
Well, for 2009, the board authorized it was $2,300 of in-kind service contribution. I'm not sure what we can afford this year, if anything at all, but that was roughly it was the same for the years past. The previous year, I believe, was $2,000 to $2,500 as well. We also need to take into fact that each restaurant, we're waiving those fees as well, so that's $250. Jen, I don't know, do you have a final count yet of restaurant total?
No, not yet.
Okay. So we'll figure, if it's at least 10 restaurants, that's $2,500 right there in revenue that the board would need to authorize to waive as well, for one $250 charge, in addition to all the labor costs as well.
Well, I mean, it's an in-kind item that we didn't budget anyway. So, you know, you're talking about of the 4,000, you're talking about 3,000 is this fee, so they're going to pay one fee of $250, and then our big contribution is trash removal and street cleaning. And Bill, we can handle that.
But if the board chooses to waive in-kind contribution of $2,500 in the event, just in labor, have calculated to be almost $5,000, so that would be $2,500 in township costs right there.
Can you clarify something for me? It is not in the budget to spend, it's not a line item in our budget, and it wasn't a line item in our budget last year. But it is in the budget because the costs were absorbed. I mean, an employee, Joe Smith, that worked overtime last year for this was paid, and that would be in our 2009 budget under overtime for that department. So unless it had been taken out, those costs that we absorbed last year are reflected in the 2010 budget, right? Or not?
Bill, the labor costs are not in the budget, correct?
No, I mean, it's always been quote-unquote absorbed by the Public Works or Police Department out of their general operating budget. In the future, as we've discussed before, we're going to have what we call special events line item budget, so we actually budget for these things. These are not regularly budgeted items when we do our year-to-year budget for each operating department.
Right, I guess what the point I'm trying to make is if it was absorbed last year, then the numbers from last year reflect those expenses in theory, right?
Yes, and part of, like I was pointing out, part of
Right.
that, they do reimburse us. There's just depending on the binder, it's up to $2,000. I think they'll reimburse us and up to the cash value of that. So basically, of the $4,800, we will get $2,200 in that range between $1,800 to $2,200.
Well, I move the approval on that basis. Oh, I'm sorry.
Bill, actually, Bill Martin, I just want to, I'm in favor of supporting this. I think this is important
Oh,
for the
and waiver
community.
of fees, okay.
It looks like we're going to have 5 police officers at our cost of about $2,130 if we didn't have the administration fee in there. Do we need 5 officers on that? Is that a typical?
Yeah, I'll let
committee for
AJ
that?
respond. Last year,
AJ?
the hours had changed and they're a little more expanded hours, so AJ can give you a quick update on that.
That's correct. In the very beginning, when we didn't serve alcohol, we only put 1 officer out there, as crowd control. But once the alcohol starts and the major crowds, you have crossing at Lancaster Avenue, crossing at West Avenue, and also within the crowd itself. So those officers are needed.
Can I ask a question about the vendors? Are they local businesses mostly? Or, yes? So, I mean, in my view, these are businesses that are paying taxes, that are raising money for us, and it would behoove us as a township to support their marketing, to support bringing people in, so that their revenues go up, so that our tax income goes up. It all makes sense.
Plus,
Yeah, we
you
want to-
expose more people to downtown Wayne, and presumably anybody who's here as a first-time or second-time visitor will come back and spend money in the restaurants and shops. So it makes sense. I think it, even though there may be an upfront hit on the in-kind contributions, we make it back later on in taxes.
Sure. What we wanted to do, in the past, these waivers have been done on the administrative level. They really should be approved by you. And the other part of it was we wanted you to be aware that in this environment, there are costs involved. And this is if we're not saying this is a great community activity. It's one of the things we do, quote unquote, absorb in the budget. In the future, we probably should have a clear budget for these type of events. But we want to show you that these events cost money, and as long as you know you're approving them, and they add a value to the community. That's why we're recommending that you do approve it.
So, Mr. Martin, tell us on the second page, the letter of understanding, what would have to be in the portion in bold to be determined by the Board of Commissioners in order to capture the spirit of what we just stated.
Was the 2,500 in fees and the 4,800 in labor cost?
Correct. Basically, in part of the agreement, there's usually a match that they put in kind to match up to where our estimated expenses are, which officers are going to be over that. And Matt will work out the number with the group.
So can this be approved with that language, or does the number have to be put in, or does that have to be determined by?
We're going to determine it. I mean, Matt, how did you want to work that with the Wayne Jazz Fest?
Well, we can, the board can set the amount tonight, and then it's, John Nagel, it's not $2,500 plus the $4,800. That $2,500 would go into, the contribution would go in to pay for the labor costs.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
so it's not, you're not adding it, you would actually subtract that $2,500. And also take into consideration the fee waiver as well for all the restaurants.
Last year, they paid about $1,800.
So my read of this is there has to be a number in where it says to be determined by the Board of Commissioners.
And what's the number we negotiated that they're going to pay?
Well, we haven't negotiated, but last year it was 2,300 last year.
That's correct.
We could say,
Well, it looks like we have 480390 on our costs. Maybe we could agree on the contributions would be 50% of that. Does that make sense?
could we just say not to exceed in 3,000 or something? And let the staff work out the details?
Yeah, I'm certainly comfortable with that. My concern is if we're approving the resolution, are we approving the letter of understanding? If we're approving the letter of understanding, then we need certainty, even if we're just saying that staff will make that determination.
No, the letter of understanding, I think, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, was attached. You know, we'll negotiate it. You know, that will be for your final approval.
Okay. So we don't have to fill that in now. That can be resolved by staff.
That's correct. That's not part of the resolution. That was
Very good.
to show you, once you approve the resolution, we have to work this out with the Wayne Jazz Fest as we have done in the past. I mean, if there's a number you're comfortable with, not to exceed a certain number, we could do that tonight, but basically, you know, in the past, it's been around $1,800 in that range.
All right, let's vote.
We need public comment. Jim, you should have been up front waiting, man. You should have been up front waiting. Save us the transit time.
We're going to vote yes, so if you're supporting this, you don't have to say anything.
Now you know why I'm up here.
Oh.
I wanted to provide an opposing view. My name is Jim Schneller. I live, in fact, within a quarter mile of Wayne Avenue. The opposing point of view is that if you're finding reasons to waive a fee, you can find a reason for everyone. And I think a firm policy of no waiver should be established. I think this arose about 2 months ago, and I really honestly think that it gives an impression, to me anyway, of not being concerned about the small costs. And the small costs have added up and have given us a good bit of finance to think about. I'd like to know how the finance committee that met last night would feel about the 2,000 being shrugged off. And I know that there's great contribution from this part of our local economy. However, I believe that the waivers probably were instituted in the first place because we wanted impetus for the initial restaurants that opened and the festival, which of course is now quite popular. Thank you.
Any other public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Excuse me, my mic was off. The next item is the announcement of the annual Katie Sampson Lacrosse Festival at Radnor High School on Saturday, April 24th, 2010.
That's who you are, and we're for the
I'm
township.
Peter Sampson. This is Banny Ackerman. We are Katie Sampson's parents. This is the 10th festival. It's on April 24th. It is larger than ever with, as you see from the materials that were invited in the back. We're in the back. We now have 26 girls teams, 24 boys teams. That's total 25 games, I believe. I may even have that wrong. 27 games, 54 teams. And just a few key things that we're very proud of. This has been a community, an event that has been supported by the mainline community with the leadership in Radnor. I speak of this on behalf of Katie, the festival committee, which donates thousands of hours over the year, the hundreds of volunteers that work on the day, the sponsors who largely represent, very significantly represent mainline businesses, mainline schools, and Radnor businesses such as College Perspectives, the representatives of BlackRock who support this event are Radnor residents, Notre Dame is a Radnor school. Bryn Mawr Trust, Hannum's Harley Davidson is owned by a Radnor resident, et cetera. So this is a very well supported event by our community. Over the past 9 years, we've been able to give almost $1 million to many great causes. The most notable are cutting-edge research organizations dedicated to curing spinal cord injury, organizations dedicated to improving the quality of life of those with catastrophic injury. So I think I'm here to request another proclamation that April 24th be named Katie Sampson Day.
I'd like to speak on this. The Katie Sampson Festival, from a pure lacrosse fan standpoint, is the premier festival tournament in the southeastern Pennsylvania area. They get together teams that otherwise don't have the opportunity to play each other. It is fabulous lacrosse. Believe me, you're not going to see any better lacrosse in this area than at this particular event. I've known Peter and Banny for many years and was here when, unfortunately, Katie, right over at the Willows, was injured. And they've taken a really bad situation and turned it into a wonderful opportunity, not only for Katie, but for spinal cord research and actually scholarships for various other people. I think this is just an incredible event, and the very minimal in-kind contributions that we would be absorbing, actually waiver of fees, is such that we really should support this, and I would suggest we support it very strongly.
Peter, what are the fields you use for this? I know there's...
We use all the high school fields. So you start with the 2 turf fields, Loop Field, Roland, and Library. The baseball outfield is made into a field, and Creek, and then we use Pike Field for youth games throughout the day. Not meaning any disrespect to any other organizations, but there isn't an in-kind donation requirement from the festival. We reimburse the township and the school district for all labor costs on that day.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to move that we declare April 24th the annual Katie Sampson Lacrosse Day, and that we waive the $250 fee to one fee of $250 instead of each sponsor having to pay the fee.
Thank you. That was
Second.
excellent.
Motion made and second. Any further conversation from the board? Any other public input? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
you have to come up to the mic.
No, the people at home
It's
can't
being
hear you.
televised, so the people at home need to be able to see it. Thank you, Peter and Downey.
Right there.
Right there.
Mike, yeah.
I'd just like to say I've had 3 boys go through the lacrosse program, and I'd like to say thank you for being such a leader for all those years. We have scouts coming from all over to look at our kids, and I think it's well worth it to put them on display. They get into great schools, and this is very good for our township. And I'd like to personally say thank you.
Thanks. Any further comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much. Appreciate all you do.
Last item is Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee 2009/2010 report and update. Mr. Paolantonio, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Steve Paolantonio, and I'm chair of the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee, and also in attendance is Cheryl Tomola, who is our vice chair. On behalf of the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee, we have presented to you for your review our update report for 2009 heading into 2010. A couple of remarks before any questions or you had for me. First, we wanted to thank you for your 2 most recent appointments, which were Rick Barker from the Garrett Hill Steering Committee, and also Jim Greenfield, who is a very good real estate attorney and knows our ordinances very well, and also served on the Planning Commission. We both served the Planning Commission together, so we thank you for that. One thing, the accomplishments in this report we gave you aren't just 2009, it's from the beginning of 2003 after the comp plan was adopted. Last year, we restructured the committee a little bit in that what we gave is the 9 sections from the comp plan. We gave each person on our committee that responsibility of looking at that particular section and going through and updating it as we possibly can. It's their own little subcommittee, and they can get whatever resources they have or they want, and they report back to us as in the greater group to discuss it and then bring anything forward that we need to bring that we can. So that has been working out very well. It's been saving us a lot of time instead of the one group getting together. Each group at their own pace can go through and take care of what they have to. One thing, since this was submitted to you, that has come up is that we started another subcommittee headed by Jim Greenfield, which is really an ordinance review subcommittee that he will be heading up. And it's a couple members from our committee and a couple members from the Planning Commission. And the idea of that is to look at all the existing ordinances, prioritize, and see what we can do to tighten them up, see which ones are working, which aren't working, and to try to make the township better. One of the first priorities we're going to be looking at is institutional ordinances, and to see what we can do about that, because we feel that the institutional areas are probably the most, that will have the most effect on the township if something were to happen in the planning process there. Perfect example is the long-range plan that's supposed to be submitted every 2 years. We got that from 4 years to 2 years, which is a good thing, but it really doesn't have any teeth. After looking at it and so forth, it's really a document that we're hoping that the institutions are truthful about, and that they're stating their real purpose and what they plan to do in 5 years or 10 years. But as we all know, excuse me, that after they submit it, fine, they can go back and say, well, you know what, that was 10 o'clock last night. Right now, we changed our mind, and we're going to do X. And there's really no legality to any of that. So we're really going to look at that and see what we can do with that and some of the other ordinances. As a committee, we've had a lot of discussions throughout the years, and we feel it's very important for the township at this stage to really have some sort of mechanism where all the advisory boards can really communicate with each other so that each one knows what they're doing. When you get on a board, when you're appointed to a board, it usually takes about a year or so before you really get a feel for what's going on, and then you're really at the knowledge or the schooling of the people around you. And what we think is important is that, say, planning meets with each board separately and said, this is what we do, this is how we look at it. Zoning, this is how we do it, this is what we look at. Shade tree, and so forth and so on. So they all know what they're looking at, what their priorities are. So when one board is looking at a topic, they can go back and say, okay, now we see how it interacts with all the other boards. And we think that's very important heading into that now. I think the communication is very important, as well as possibly with each new member of any of the boards that are appointed in the January reorganization or whenever they come on board, is some sort of quick crash course on whatever you think is important, most for us anyway. It's the comprehensive plan, to give them an overview of what it is, because the idea for the comprehensive plan implementation committee was that in 1988 there was a very good document of a comprehensive plan, but what happened, it ended up sitting on the shelf and really was never implemented. So we wanted to make sure that that didn't happen again with the 2003 plan, so we had the implementation committee come forth and try to implement those goals and objectives. The important thing with that is to make sure everybody is understanding that, so that roadmap, so to speak, of the comprehensive plan is at least thought about and can be referred to. We know it's not a legal document, it's a guide. We all understand that, but we think it's important to let everybody know that are making some of the decisions and some of the recommendations that come back to you as the ultimate decision makers of where things go. So that's basically our report. Try to make it as comprehensive as we could without being cumbersome and overbearing that you had to take a couple weeks to read it. So it was really in short form, and if you had any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer anything. Or if I can't answer it, there's 9 other members. We spend a lot of time and quite frankly, I can't remember everything that was discussed and voted on or recommended, but I'd be happy to, do whatever I can for you guys and ladies.
Well, I'd like to start out by saying thank you. This is a huge, in my opinion, this is one of the most important committees in this township because it really, this plan should chart the way we move forward, and if it just sits on a shelf, we end up being reactive instead of proactive. And I really see the implementation committee as being the one group that really keeps prodding us to move forward and be proactive about going into the direction we want to see us instead of just kind of reacting and hoping we get there. So thank you. And I personally have seen how much time and effort that this committee puts in and the results, and I'm so appreciative. I know we all are. There's one thing that I wanted to make sure gets in the list of to-do list for 2010, which I know we've discussed, so I know it's in the works, but it's not in here. And that is reviewing and updating our open space plan.
Correct.
Which is from, our current open space plan is from 1991 and is outdated, plain and simple. And so we hoping that the implementation committee will put that on their to-do list and we will get a new plan updated.
Absolutely, Commissioner Schaefer. Thank you for your kind words, and we'll make sure that gets on our list.
Steve, I want to echo what you had commented. We've been carrying on a conversation about board and commission education, I think, for about a year now.
Correct.
What I'm hoping to do when the new manager comes in, when we have more time to focus on those types of things, maybe we can get together, kind of come up with an idea, a curriculum, some type of an outline of what each committee would need in terms of education, documentation, and then also start to think about facilitating these meetings between the various members of the board so they can interact.
Absolutely, Commissioner Fisher, and you're right. You and I have discussed this, and I think we're both on the same wavelength in concept, and I think it's a good thing, and it's just a matter of putting all those pieces together. And I agree. Once the new township manager's here and gets settled in, we should be able to do that. So we're looking forward to that opportunity as well.
Yeah, and towards that end, John, I'm planning to have, for want of a better name, a summit with the president or vice president from each of the boards coming together. Over the years, I think communications previously had been somewhat better, but it slipped. And Steve, Don and I met with the Planning Commission last week briefly just to talk about some of this integration. And thanks again, Steve.
No, thank you, and you're right, Commissioner Nagel. So, if there are any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, members.
That's it for community development.
Finance and audit. John, you want to take this for Kevin?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Don.
No, John.
Sorry about that. Yeah, first up, we have the schedule of bills payable for April 12, 2010. Attaches a list of bills to be approved totaling $223,001.48. In addition to that, the grand total authorized for disbursement is $641,325.37. These bills have been approved by the respective department head, verified and processed by the finance department, and are within the 2010 budgetary limits as imposed by the Board of Commissioners at its December 14, 2009 stated meetings. This is reported to us from Allison Rudolph, our interim finance director.
I'll move the approval.
Moved in second, and any further discussion from the board? Any public discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next up, we have the adoption of ordinance 2010-20, amending 2000-12 relating to parking rates at the AT&T parking lot and township-owned Wayne parking lots, and requiring the payment of the same to be made to the Township of Radnor. I move to adopt ordinance 2010-20.
Second?
Moved in second. Any further discussion from the board?
One question. So this is the this is the culmination to this point of the discussion that we've had, clarifying the administrative difficulty with the RECT. Is
Yes.
that right?
Well, not with RECT, but the way we were keeping the books.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, so the fees in the past, the checks were made out to RECT but given to the township. Now they will go to, have the township name.
And we
And sometime
will-
in the future, we'll discuss RECT and its relationship. Any public comment on this? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
And the last item under Finance and Audit is the appointment of Interim Finance Director Allison Rudolph. Allison comes to us as our next Interim Finance Director. We expect Allison to work with us for some time, and I want to welcome her, but I guess we need to vote on this.
Move the approval of the appointment?
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? By the way, Allison's background includes spending some time as a township manager herself, so we feel that when the new township manager arrives, she'll be able to assist him greatly in understanding the differences between Ohio and Pennsylvania, which I think are pretty unique. And welcome aboard.
Actually, how many years was it in Lower Moreland, Allison? 27 years as the township manager. And at that time, she had principal responsibility for the budget, assisted by another individual in the township, but she was primarily responsible as being the author in each of those years. So she brings with her a wealth of experience, and we know that she's already putting it to good use here, so because we're hearing good things back.
And and she's helping us, got us through our 2009 audit. It's just started today, so we're keeping things moving forward.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No further report.
Kevin's not here. Elaine, do you want to take this? Library?
Sure. We are scheduled to have a continued discussion about the loan forgiveness. For those of you who weren't here 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, a short synopsis of the situation is that in 2004, the township and the library agreed that the proceeds from a bond, a $500,000 bond, would be given to the library. They would pay it back at about $35,000 a year, and they would spend it on renovations and improvements to increase the usable space of the library. They have spent about half of that, and about half of it remains. And they have requested to forgive the payments and to spend the rest of that money on very badly needed improvements on the building in the HVAC system and the roof and some other improvements. That's pretty much the long and short of it. Do we want to just have our discussion, or do we want to have some comments from the library at this point? What is the desire of the board?
I'll move the approval.
Well, I really think there's two issues. One is the bigger issue of the forgiveness of the entire debt. But to me, at least right now, the most important issue is the roof and the HVAC. And as I see it, there's at least, we can proceed two different ways. We can ask the library board to move ahead, solicit bids, let out that work and get it done. And then because it is a township facility and these are capital improvements to township facility, I would suggest forgiving at least that much of the debt. So they're really or the township can do it. They'll give us back that amount of money, and then the township will do it. I think it would be much more expeditious to have the library board complete that.
My thoughts are, I don't see it really as two issues at this point. I see it as the library, the repairs will be done regardless of who does them, the money's set aside. So to me, the issue before us is the forgiveness of the loan. I think we should make a decision on that tonight, because I don't see any reason to wait. We make a decision on that tonight, and then we let the library tell us how they want to proceed, whether they want to make the improvements themselves or they want to have the township make the improvements.
Okay.
But
Do we have a motion?
I would like to move, well, before I make a motion, I'd like to say that I would be opposed to having the library spend the money and us then forgiving the debt. I think if these are capital improvements that our responsibility, if we are spending taxpayer money, if we are forgiving the debt, and that we need to have the safeguards of our bidding process, our conflicts provisions. So I would advocate for taking the money back and having the township spend it and forgiving the, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to have the library return the remaining proceeds from the loan and for us to forgive the remaining payments that they are under the obligation to pay us. Now, in support of that motion, I would just like to say that I think it is.
Well, before you do that, we need a second.
Okay.
Can you just clarify, are we going to forgive the entire payment or part of the payments, or?
My motion would be for the entire.
Do we have a second?
Did somebody second? I, in my opinion, the library is a vital part of this community. It's a vital service that we as a township have the obligation to provide for our residents. And it is our obligation to keep that building in working order. I was curious as to where we fall in the spectrum of library maintenance and keeping up our library and supporting our library within our neighborhood. So I looked up over the weekend and I learned that our neighbors to the west, Tredyffrin, who have a very similar population, they have 28,000 residents, budget $1.8 million a year for the operations of their library. They have 2 libraries. And they last year spent $500,000 in capital money in addition to that operational money and have budgeted for 2010 $300,000. To our east, Lower Merion, which is twice the size of us, they have 58,000 residents. They have 6 libraries. They budgeted over $4 million for 2010 in their library. Now, I'm not recommending that we expand our spending, or my point is, if we consider ourselves a top-notch township and we want to continue to attract a high caliber of educated and sophisticated and people into this township, a stable, vibrant, wonderful library is one of the amenities that we need to provide. And it's our obligation to do that. Just as it's our obligation to educate our children and find schools and protect our residents from fire. So I think it's almost embarrassing that we would be asking the library to take on this debt for capital expenditures for which we are responsible for the building that we own, that is the most trafficked township building. And it's even more embarrassing sitting in this building making that decision, which we have just spent $16 million on. And in the library, you have to weave your way through buckets collecting water, which most of our residents use the library, and most of our residents don't use this building. So that is my motion, and that is why I support it.
Is there an argument that the library should keep the money and spend it on the projects, or is this fine? Fine, I'm ready. All right, let's go.
Well, I got to voice some concerns. One is the function is vital, but I don't think that's the issue before us, because under any scenario, the library gets its repairs, the money is set aside, they can start the repairs tomorrow. So to me, the issue is whether we're currently giving the library $816,000 and we're going to increase that to $850,000 for 20 years. So we're making, unadjusted for inflation and the opportunity cost of the money, we're making about a $700,000 decision right now. And then second, just in response to the item that Elaine indicated was embarrassing, I don't think spending the money in the 2004 agreement was a good way to spend the money. But regardless, that's what the parties agreed to. And so we have an opportunity to use that money to make the repairs on the library, and this is budgeted money, so we're not reducing the money that the library would get in its budget. that money stays the same. So the library has already budgeted these payments, or at least they should have, because they already agreed to make these payments. So to me, we should stick closer, and partly because we have a projected $1 million deficit coming up. We have to restore funds to our general fund. We have an obligation by ordinance to do that. So I think this is too large an item to go beyond or outside of what we had previously budgeted. So in my opinion, it's a mistake to proceed the way the ordinance, or rather the motion indicates. And I think we should use the existing money and have the library continue to make those payments to the township.
I have a compromise idea. I think I agree with Don in some ways and Elaine in some ways. I questioned the library spending half of the money that we lent it a few years ago on the remodeling that went on. The township clearly is responsible to maintain the building and the structure, and I think it would be in everyone's best interest for the township to allow the library to either do the repairs for the $246,000 or have them turn the money back to us and have us do the repairs to the building. And then in response to the difference in the amount, the original bond was $500,000 and the loan payment is $35,000 a year. I would suggest that we waive only half of the loan payment because that would represent about half of the money and about half of the work, which is in fact used for the capital improvement on the building. However, when the economy recovers, a future board could easily waive the remaining loan payment. But I think I have to agree with Don. At this point in time, we are very short on funds. And as much as I'd like to waive that entire payment, that $35,000 loan payment from the library to the township, I don't think that would be the right thing to do right now. So my proposal would be, and this is going to be if this motion doesn't pass, would be to forgive half the loan payment, have the loan payment be about $17,000 a year, and then allow the library to use the $246,000 remaining in the capital fund to, in fact, put a new roof on the building, new HVAC, new bathrooms, and lighting, as they had described at the last meeting.
Well, in a perfect world, we'd have a new library now, and we don't. And so we're patching this one together. So I'm going to vote for Elaine's motion.
I have a question. I mean, I see the logic in your compromise, John. My question is, the expenses, the things that the first half of that money were spent on, furniture, carpeting, painting, security, lighting, are those items that we as township are responsible for? Does anybody know that? I mean, is that structural and building maintenance?
And a follow-up question to that would be, my recollection of the agreement is that the agreement has the word capital in it. Does anyone else recall that? So I see the roof and the HVAC as consistent with the agreement. If I'm only going from my recollection, but my recollection is it did say capital as one of the things that the money would be used to.
It was for improvements.
Capital improvements, is that right?
Improvements. Well, capital.
It says renovations
as you
and
wish
improvements.
to depreciate it. That really is more an accounting statement than anything else. The fact is that it was done to improve the library. The library was suffering.
George, would you please introduce
Incidentally,
yourself?
I'm George Strimmel. I'm the president of the library. With me, Tom Glynn, the treasurer, and Kathy Mulroy. I also would indicate that there are in this room other members of our board as well as representatives of the Friends of the Library who are the people that go out there and help us make this all possible. So that you gave the numbers, and the fact is that in our case, we're spending about, the monies given by the township are about 66% of the monies that it takes to run the library on a regular basis, far lower than the other communities that she talked about where they're giving far more. Our community does back our library, and we are simply asking for our commissioners to also back our library. Tom, do you have anything to add to this? We do not wish to be in the general contractor business, nor are we qualified to be.
Yeah, I think that's important, that we don't have anybody at the library who should be or could be responsible for monitoring whatever a contractor would do to fix the roof in the HVAC system. So we think that lies clearly with the township and the people within the township who negotiate these kinds of contracts. So that's the practical side of it. And
that part isn't though in question though. Isn't no one's opposing
let me see if I can. Let me see.
I just don't. And I think I'm concerned that you are misunderstand my point. I'm not saying that the library should do the repair, because the library can take the existing money and have the township use that money to do the repair.
Let me see if I can summarize where we are. The township has an obligation to put the library back in working condition. Clear. The library has money that's the result of a bond issue in 2004. That's the library's money. As far as I can understand it, the township doesn't have any money. So the township wants the library's money to discharge its obligation. Understood. In exchange for that, we should be forgiven the loan.
Can you answer the question about your opinion of the expenses that have already been incurred, whether those should have been township expenses or library expenses?
We are responsible for the contents of the building. The lease is not clear, I would say, about painting, for example. That was one of the questions. Carpeting, that's not really clearly spelled out. Usually carpet, and in fact, I'm going through this right now with the insurance company. That is considered part of the building, not of the contents of the building. The carpet and painting and light fixtures and things of that nature. One of the other important things was the money was also designated, as you said, Ms. Schaefer, to expand the usable space of the library, and that renovation and the new furniture that we purchased opened up space that we could use then for expanded space for users. And so, again, we got the opinion that what we did fell under the language of the original loan, or we wouldn't have spent it.
I just happen to have this with me. I have a copy of all the leases in the township. For the library, the lessee's responsibilities include cleaning and maintaining the interior, painting the interior and exterior, provide for maintenance agreements on the ventilation, heating, and air conditioning systems, cost of utilities, day-to-day janitorial maintenance of the exterior of the building, including cleaning of windows, replacement of all light bulbs, maintaining insurance on contents and liability, pay the first $500 only of each cost for maintenance or repairs except for any items reserved to the township as set forth below, and allow the township to utilize the community room upon 1 week notice if it is not previously reserved. The township's responsibilities include maintaining the structural integrity of the exterior of the building, including the roofing and replacement of glass, to pay for any and all costs of maintenance and repairs in excess of $500 in each and such cost or charge, replacement of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning units, maintenance of the macadam services, concrete sidewalks, entrance areas including steps and replacement of resurfacing of the same, periodic cleaning of rain gutters, downspouts, removing snow and ice from sidewalk, steps, and parking areas, maintaining lawn and shrubbery, replacing of all parking area lights, and maintaining insurance on the building and liability insurance. So I think if I look at the lease, I think my proposal kind of tries to encapsulate the responsibilities. The township is clearly responsible for the mechanicals of the building, for the exterior maintenance of structure. The library is clearly responsible for painting and furniture and fixtures. So I think, in my mind, the fair compromise is to forgive the portion of the loan that is going to be used for, in fact, the air conditioning, the roofing, and the structural components. And then if a future board were interested in forgiving the rest in a better economic climate, which could be just a year off, then we get to the same end result. But in this way, we could, not only can we use the money for its intended purpose, but we can also assume the responsibilities that are here. And they're pretty clear to me when I read the lease.
Well-
So I don't know if that helps.
Well, let me weigh in on this, because you talk about the economic climate. The economic climate for the library is as bleak as it's ever been. The contributions from the state have dwindled, as I understand, from our last discussion. So I don't think that libraries are necessarily at the head of everybody's charitable contribution list either, much as we'd like to see that. So I think that the economic climate probably hurts the library more than it does the township generally, because you don't have the ability to do anything with regard to taxes. And really, when it comes right down to it, the principal contribution that you get is from us on an annual basis. And if the money is not there in your coffers to do this work, you're going to ask us. And if you want to repay this loan and you don't have the money, you're going to be asking us for the money to repay the loan. So it's a boomerang, as far as I'm concerned. I agree with Tom. We have the obligation to make sure that this building is up to snuff, that they have the opportunity to provide this important service. And I would go along with Elaine's original motion and forgive the entire loan, because I think that's the appropriate thing to do.
Call the question and let's see if we have the votes.
Well, we haven't had public comment yet.
All right, okay.
Thanks. Are there any further public comment? You have to come up front. Wait till you come up to the mic. It's important because then the people at home can.
I'm Susan Bowers, and I'm a resident. I use the library all the time. And I'm looking at this gorgeous building here, and I'm thinking, the library is, I think, our most important resource that the people of this township use. And I just can't believe that I'm listening to you all say you can't forgive this loan when the library has lost
We didn't all say that. Only a couple
Well,
people mentioned it.
Seems to be only one person saying that.
Okay.
Maybe
Well,
two.
I don't
Yeah.
quite understand why you're saying it, because in this economy, the library is more important to people than ever. And they have less money because the state has given them far less, which I totally disagreed with and even wrote to the state about. So in my opinion, you should definitely forgive the entire debt and really be grateful that we have such a wonderful library.
So I just feel I'd like to respond. I mean, part of the reason for me is that I look at this building, and the expense of this building is part of the problem was that we didn't control costs like we should have. So we have a burden to control costs. I don't like it. I would be surprised if there's anyone in the room who has checked more books out of the library than me in the last year.
you shouldn't-
But that's the price that we're going to have to pay
You
for.
shouldn't penalize the library because you overspent on this building. That's
Okay.
100% wrong in my
You know
opinion.
what? Not everybody was
Okay.
around here when the old building was up and we were marching around, just like the library's doing now, with buckets in our meeting room, and the rain was coming through, and that roof was repaired repeatedly.
Right.
So that building was at the end of its useful life.
Oh, I'm not
And
saying
I
that
know
it
there's,
wasn't.
everybody out there is gonna say, you overspent on the building. You know, when the facts are out, and I think John Rice has done a pretty good job of that, that building was legitimate, this building is legitimate, that the expense of it went up for various reasons, not that we didn't control expenses, but things beyond our control. But the fact of the matter is, the library needs our help now.
Okay.
And comparing this building with the library is not an appropriate analysis. They need our help. Let's get away from that and just forgive the loan, take the money back, get the work done, and move on.
Thank you, Susan.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Any further? Would you come up to the mic? I'd like to add, the only reason we're even in this jam is because the state, in their wisdom, saw another opportunity to put taxes back on the local communities by not funding the library.
But to be fair to the state, they got problems too. You
Yeah.
know, everybody has problems.
Yes,
you know?
but they're not allowing us to charge people from outside of Radnor to use the library, which we used to do. So, and I've been talking to all our legislators about that. Thanks.
Good evening. I'm Susan Silverberg. I'm a 17-year employee of the library. I no longer work there. I left because of what I will term the incompetence of previous director Barbara Cassini.
Please, please, please.
No
please.
personal
And I would
attacks.
like to
Yeah.
know
Please.
why it's taken this long for the board to get behind fixing this building, because I can tell you that when I worked there, the adult section leaked. Now the children's section is leaking. And we have a commissioner liaison who doesn't use the library, who doesn't want the library fixed. And I think that it's time that this new board with a new attitude fixes this library, because unfortunately, it's going to be years before we're going to get the money unless we put together, like our neighbors in Tredyffrin, a proposal that to collect monies for a totally new library, because this building is worn out. It was ill-conceived in the first place, and now needs to go altogether. But for the time being, we're going to just have to keep patching it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the question.
Okay, the question's been called. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 4-2.
Good.
Personnel Administration, John?
First up, we have the appointment to the Citizens Communications Council. Do I have a nomination?
Don't
Does
you know the
anyone make
name?
that?
I don't
Oh,
know.
I do.
nominate
Okay,
Ernie
I'll
Shapiro.
put it. Ernie Shapiro.
Second.
Motion, it's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next up, we have the announcement of vacancy on the Citizens Communication Council. If you have interest in serving on this council, please send your letter of interest and resume to Bill Martin at the Township Building. And it looks like I also have an appointment to the Ethics Board.
Yeah, I'll
Move
move
the-
that we appoint Ed Kennedy to the
Second.
Ethics Board. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No further report.
Okay. Parks and Rec, the first thing on the agenda is appointment to the Open Space Committee. Entertain a motion for this.
Who is it?
Susan Byrne.
Susan
Byrne.
Byrne. I move that Susan Byrne be appointed. I wasn't here, but I have great confidence in this board in making this decision.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm going to abstain because, as everybody on the board knows, Susan is my sister-in-law.
So what you're saying
I'm
is
very-
you don't want to vote against her.
I welcome her. I welcome her onto the committee because I'm there as well, but I feel there's a conflict, Susan. You know that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Susan,
Next.
if you were my sister-in-law, I'd have voted anyway. That's the way I am.
Yeah, I'd be a little suspicious, Susan. Next item on the Parks and Rec agenda is the announcement of our Arbor Day celebration. Tom, do you want to take care of this?
Thank you. We are very excited to have our Arbor Day celebration this year. We are going to have it take place. It's Friday, April 30th. It's going to be at Cabrini College on the Commons in the center of campus. We will be receiving our 18th year as a Tree City USA. We'll have the Bureau of Forestry out that day. Very excited. We're going to have some Radnor Middle School students joining us as well. And I want to thank Howard Holden for helping me put the program together for that day. So anybody that's interested, please come out and join us Friday, April 30th at 10 a.m. Cabrini College for our Arbor Day celebration. We also plant a tree. It's very great, and you learn how to plant a tree properly, which is a good thing.
And you're on a roll, Tom, so let's talk about the Youth Trout Derby, which I believe, I might have been on Parks and Rec when this was first started, and the biggest fish you'll ever find in those waters will be right there for that trout derby.
Yes, we're very fortunate to work with the Chester Valley Sportsmen's Association. We have our 13th annual Youth Trout Derby. It is at the Darby Creek at Sawmill Park, Friday, April 30th, and Saturday, May 1st. I have a rain date of May 7th and May 8th. It's for boys and girls ages 5 through 13. We're limited to the first 150 registrants, first come, first serve, so get in there and sign up. Friday, April 30th, 6 to 8 p.m. Saturday, May 1st, 8 to 10:45 a.m. The stream is open for children to fish until 5 on Saturday. It's great. Trophies are awarded for the biggest fish, hot dogs, sodas, and it's a really wonderful day and community event. So if you can come out and join us for the Trout Derby, we'd love to have you.
Thank you, Tom. Bill, you had something? you
Yes, we just today set up some dedication ceremonies for some parks that we named. And on Saturday, April 24, 2010, at 8:45, we're going to dedicate Odorizio Field. We're going to dedicate the ball field to Ralph DeMeo Field, outstanding individual in our community. And anyone, we'd love you to come out. 8:45, St. Catherine's is going to have a ball game there at 9 o'clock, but we're going to do the dedication at 8:45. And then from there, we're going to go over to South Devon Park, which we're going to dedicate and name Bo Connor Park, who was lived right there and really ran that park and was on our park board and did a tremendous job. Both Ralph DeMeo and Bo Connor contributed 50 years of their lives to the youth of this community, and we're very proud and honored to be able to name these two facilities for them on April 24th. So we'll be at 8:45 at Odorizio to name Ralph DeMeo Field, and then we're going to go right there about 9:15 to go over to South Devon and dedicate that park to Bo Connor. So I hope the community can come out to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Public health, we have another thing on the agenda. Public safety. Hank.
First item on the agenda is the announcement of a vacancy still on the Civil Service Commission. If you have an interest in that, please send your resume and letter of interest to Bill Martin here at the Township Building. We've been announcing this for a number of meetings, and we haven't.
We have somebody.
Oh, we do?
We do.
We do, okay.
We have someone submitting their name, so anyone else is interested, they can submit it, but we do have a candidate. That's great.
But if you want to be interviewed for it, please send your resume in as quickly as possible. Next item on the agenda is introduction of ordinance 2010-22, which would repeal ordinance 86-46 at Luella Court. From 1986 to the present, pursuant to this ordinance, there has been 2-hour parking. 2 hours, AJ?
This is actually the Smoky Joe's ordinance. It only prohibited parking Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night on the court and the loop. So this is different than the 2-hour parking.
Okay.
But you're correct about the other 2-hour parking.
Well, I had been getting a few calls from folks on Luella Court concerning the changeover from 2-hour parking to permit parking, and suggested that this might be a good opportunity for them to raise their concerns, if they had any, concerning the switchover from that 2-hour parking to permit parking. But I will go ahead and move the introduction of this particular ordinance.
So this ordinance is, we're just repealing this ordinance is all we're doing here.
That's correct. It's
Yeah.
inconsistent with the rest of the meters, and it's really
Okay.
not needed since Smoky Joe's isn't
All right.
there.
All right. Second?
Would the board entertain at this time discussion from the neighbors concerning this permit parking issue?
I think we could do that, but let's vote on this one first, and then we'll have it
Okay.
since it's related.
All right.
Any further discussion?
I
Public-
think, Hank, you may have misspoke. I think you said ordinance 1986-46. I think it's 47.
47.
Is that right?
I'm sorry, I was reading off of the agenda. It is 8647 on the ordinance. Which one is it, AJ?
Just stick with
I believe it
2010,
is
22, and we're
47.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
86,
I'd have to check for you.
47, yeah. No, it's right here. It's right here.
Well, we know what we're.
Well, the agenda's
We know what
different.
we're repealing. We just have to get the number right.
Okay. Well, we're passing this ordinance that says 47, so if that's
Okay.
wrong, you know, then we're in trouble.
So it's been moved and seconded.
Yep.
It's moved and seconded. Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Now, at this point, I would entertain from any neighbors on Luella Court, any comments or questions they have concerning the switchover from the 2-hour parking to permit parking.
I'm Jerry Nicolini. I live in 40 Luella Court in Luella House. And we were told we'd all be able to get permits. And once the permit parking signs went up, we're not able to get permits. The landlord's got to provide spots for that building. The building's had a limited amount of parking spots for a very long time. And I don't think anybody in the neighborhood wants that green space there to change and become paved. And, you know, we would just like the ability to have parking permits so that we'd be able to utilize our street.
Yeah, as I understand it, the situation in Luella Court is that there are a certain limited number of spaces on the street itself. Luella House, which is the old mansion, provides a certain number of parking spaces, but certainly not enough for all the residents and the cars that are there. And I understand from discussion that of the, is it 18 residents? 18 tenants?
There are 24 apartments, I believe, but the ones underneath the apartment don't
There's
have
24 there's 24 apartments. There's 18 parking spots. There's possibly 20 right now. We did a little shuffling, so.
But I understand
that's
there's
our
approximately
situation.
25 cars in toto in the Luella House. So the question really is, why can't they have permits? And the reason is because the existing ordinance on permit parking does not permit permits for residents of multifamily dwellings. Is that it, AJ?
That's correct. You have to own a single-family home on a single-family lot. Twins, single-family homes, duplexes, and apartment complexes do not meet the requirements.
Apparently, it's more
Hold on for a
complicated.
second. So essentially, what we're saying is that people who are tenants in an apartment building can have permits, whereas if you are living, either owning or a tenant in a single-family dwelling, you can have a permit for parking on the street. Now, this is township-wide, and there may be very good reasons in Luella Court to not enforce that or to waive that in some fashion. But I just want to get the ball rolling on that discussion.
Well, I think that the fact is that the apartment complex is grandfathered in with not enough parking spaces. So if the residents have been parking on Luella Court on first come, first served basis, they ought to be able to get permits. I mean, you know, they have a certain amount of spots there, but.
Could I say something?
Susan, go ahead.
I agree with that. We all are Radnor residents, and even though I'm just a renter, I do pay taxes, I'm sure, by what I pay in rent. And I feel like a secondhand citizen if that is not the case. But apparently it's even more complicated than that, because there have been
Can you address the board? Just look at us.
I'm sorry. There have been people that have houses that have tried to get permits and haven't been able to. And since the permit signs have gone up, I've watched to see who was parking there. I think there are only 3 cars that have been able to get permits for some unknown reason. If the parking driveway is too long, they won't give a permit.
Well, if you can park the cars in, you don't get a permit if you have a place to park. The
To me, it
permits are
seems-
for people that don't have a place to park.
Well, to me anyhow, to be totally fair, it would be fair to give each resident and each renter 1 parking permit.
Yeah, but then every resident could park on the street and not in their driveway, and there wouldn't be any parking for the people who needed it. That's the problem. There's not enough parking for everybody there. So it's a first come, first served basis. So if you
Well-
have a driveway, you ought to park in your driveway, not on the street.
And I think people would. I think that we are a community that really like each other, and we don't try to hurt each other. And I'm sure that they would continue to park in their parking
Well,
places.
the problem is that we have a rule in the township. If you have a driveway, you don't get permit parking.
I'm not sure that's the case, though.
Yeah, it is the case.
Is it, AJ?
According to the permit districts, if you have enough room in your driveway for 2 cars, you do not automatically get a permit. You can apply for a variance. If you have a room for 1 car, you get 1 permit. You can still apply for a variance. If you have no room, you can get 2 permits. We've given out 3 permits already. They're entitled to it. They've had enough room in their driveway for only 1 car. We haven't given out any variances until we see where this goes. There's a total of 18 spots available on the street, and 10 people are entitled to regular permits at this point, which would give us 8 spots.
Well,
Don't
I
use the
think it
word,
might
don't
be-
use the word variance.
I think it might be appropriate to withhold enforcement of the permit parking until we get this whole thing straightened out. Because one of the complaints I've gotten is that people didn't realize that the permit parking was in effect and we're getting tickets already. And I appreciate the enforcement that the police department gives us on these things. But this is a kind of a critical little situation involving a really good community. And I know there's some other folks out here who have houses there, and I'd like to hear from them as well as to what they think about it. Kathy, do you have?
I'm Kathy Harris. I live at 25 Llewellyn Court. We have a driveway big enough for 6 cars, and we only have 1 car, so it's not personal with me. It's just that there are four houses on the block that are eligible for permits, so that means nobody can park on the block, except for those 4 houses. And it's not really fair. It's hurting I think it will hurt the businesses having permit parking, because people, a lot of people that park on the court are people that go to the doghouse and the various businesses on the block, and they're only there for a couple hours. And most people park in their driveways. Most people only have 1 or 2 cars. Some people have 4 cars. And it's not really fair that somebody with 4 cars can get permits for 2 cars, and somebody with no car, with 1 car can't get them. I'm ready to let people, the people I know that work in the area, park in my driveway, because I think it's we're a public road, we're not a private road, and the public should be allowed to park there. What would make sense is to have permit parking for the residents and 2-hour parking for everybody else.
Well, maybe you could charge $4 for your driveway and undercut the township.
No, I wouldn't charge my driveway.
All right.
Okay.
Anybody else wishes to be heard on this? Susan? I abstained from voting for you, but I'm going to ask you to talk about this.
Here's your chance, Susan.
Families always do, they give you. Susan Byrne from Llewellyn Court. I stayed out of this in the beginning because I also have a long driveway, and because there is sensitivity with some of the neighbors that don't have such long driveways. But I really think that it wasn't broken in the beginning, and now the fix has become a larger problem than the original environment was. We make it work. It's a tight little community. It's between the municipal lot on one side, the station on the other. We're really kind of landlocked, and we make it work because we love the mansion. It contributes greatly to the quality of our lives there because of the open space. And when most of the people in the mansion are there, it's the weekend and the municipal lots are open unless it's restaurant time. So this has turned out to be a bigger problem than we had in the beginning. I didn't vote for it in the first place. I voted for it to stay the same way that it was. And I would choose to go back to that rather than have to see my neighbors jockey everything around. And it's a township road. It's not our road. But if the mansion can't get parking spaces and they pave things and the shops don't survive well, it's a worse situation than we started out with, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments?
I don't know whether you realize this, but before this permit sign went up, a policeman came around to Llewellyn Court and told us that they were thinking of making it permit parking, and that we would be able to have a permit for $5 a year, and that we would be able to call and have visitors not ticketed. And then once the permit and would we like to sign for that? And we thought that if everybody was going to get a permit, that would be fair. When the signs went up and everybody tried to get permits, nobody could get any permits. And we were specifically told at the apartment that nobody in the apartment was going to would be able to have a permit. So I think that was really wrong of them to come around and have us sign the thing that we were for permit parking when we weren't even going to be included, even though we said we were going to be. So.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think there was some misinformation. I don't think it was done intentionally, but it did occur. Go ahead.
Just wanted to build on what Susan was saying about, like, we do work together. People on the west side of the building tend to park in the municipal lot at night and only have to worry about parking on the weekends, like Friday night and stuff like that. So we do know how to utilize the street and the parking spots that are available to us.
Thank you.
Hank, why don't we, I was going to say, why don't we table enforcement for now and do a little more investigation and figure out what we want to do with this? If
I want to
may.
hear from Chuck Madden's sister.
My name's Kathy Trudeau. I live on the Weller Court also. The only problem that I have, we do have a very long driveway. My husband leaves at 5:30 in the morning, and he doesn't get home maybe till 7 o'clock at night. So we're jockeying back and forth. If I want to go out at night, I have to park either on the street or block my driveway so that when he comes home, he honks, I run out, move the car, and then he gets up at 5:30 and has to switch them all around. We're not home all day long. I mean, I don't know. We never had a problem at night before, and I didn't sign the petition, and I don't understand this whole permit thing anyway.
Okay.
That's
AJ, any suggestions?
No, I do. I remember talking to Ms. Burns and in the meeting, this was trying to fix something that occurred many years ago, and we'd be reviewing it to include, again, bringing back the 2-hour parking. So I would suggest we suspend enforcement right now, which part of that problem, quite frankly, was people parking on the Weller Court that were not residents, nor were they part of the Weller House. They were people, when we had the tags, either taking the train or going to the businesses getting free parking. So to that end, I would suggest we put it back on staff traffic, review it again to see how it's working, and then maybe go back to the 2-hour and legally put an ordinance in place.
All right. Why don't we do
Seems like
that?
a reasonable approach.
Okay. Thank you, AJ. Thank you all for coming and expressing your opinions. Next item is approval of township tow contractors. Lieutenant Antonini, you want to lead us through this?
Yes, sir. As per ordinance, once every 2 years, we have to advertise for towers to do police business towing, whether it be an accident, abandoned vehicles, or other township business. We advertised, back in February. We got 2 applications for towing O'Neill's Auto Body at 378 West Lancaster Avenue and Tommy's Mainline Towing at 392 West Lancaster Avenue. I reviewed their applications. I believe they qualify to be considered for police tows. They do, like I said, they do meet the requirements. And I would suggest or respectfully request that you approve them tonight for towing.
Move the approval.
Move the approval.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any comments from the board? Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
We are keeping tabled the item number S, which is the adoption of ordinance number 2010-18. And instead, we'll move to item number T, resolution 2010-14 regarding lost or stolen handguns. As I understand it, we are at this particular point having introduced ordinance 2010-18 regarding the ceasefire PA. And because of an opinion that we received from our solicitor that the home rule charter provision of the Pennsylvania statutes has a specific limitation or restriction, or prohibition, I should say, on home rule charter communities adopting any ordinances regarding guns. John, you want to just go over that real briefly with us?
Well, we've had some discussion about the state act and preemption, and that's an issue that the courts really haven't squarely addressed as to this specific issue. There's a case now that is pending possible, there's a petition in front of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court from the decision that came out of the city of Philadelphia. So that's a question in terms of what Radnor could do or what other townships could do. That's still up in the air. That hasn't been squarely addressed yet. But in addition, because Radnor is a home rule municipality under the, I believe, 1975 optional law, there's another specific provision that's broader than actually what's in the state statute that prohibits home rule municipalities that were established under that act from legislating in this area. It's got different language in it. It's a little bit broader, and I think when you combine those two prohibitions, until either legislature or the appellate courts address this, and I think under the state act it's a close call. But you have this home rule prohibition on top of that, which and you've gotten my opinion that discussed both of the issues and the pros and cons of proceeding forward with an ordinance.
Yeah, I think under the statute, which deals generally with municipalities legislating in this area, I do agree with you. It's a close call. It could go one way or the other, but that's not what I hang my hat on. I hang my hat on the fact that the home rule charter community apparently cannot legislate in this area, and that's very clear. I think that the lost and stolen reporting handguns was very important for this board to consider. But I think legally the best we can do is to pass this resolution 2010-14, in which we recommend to the Pennsylvania General Assembly that they take up this particular issue and pass a statewide statute dealing with this particular issue. And so I would move the resolution 2010-14 on that basis.
Second?
Motion's moved and seconded. Discussion by the commissioners.
Yeah, I have three items. One is, has someone from staff, you can verify these statistics in the first whereas paragraph, those are accurate statistics. The second paragraph, accurate statistics. And then the third one, or the further down, whereas the Pennsylvania State Police, the International Association, those three paragraphs are facts in your opinion. There's no interpretation to those three items. Is that correct? Or whoever made this draft of the ordinance?
Yeah, that, excuse me, that information, to the best of my knowledge, was provided by Ceasefire.
Okay,
we're relying on their facts for those
numbers.
So
no one from the township has checked the accuracy of this information, is that correct?
I have not. We used the information that was provided to us. Per the previous discussion, they asked them to provide documentation to us.
So I have, I want to support it, and I hope that I can support it, but there are three things that I want done. One is I want those facts verified, because I don't want to make a proclamation or a resolution unless we know the facts to be accurate. I suspect that they are, and I suspect that they won't. I don't need those facts to be, to support this, but I don't want to support it unless I know the facts are accurate. A second change that I'd like to make, and I want to hear the board's thought on it, is in the paragraph where we say requiring lost or stolen handguns to report, and so on and so forth, is discovered, would help law enforcement. We specifically asked for information about whether statistics that would support this. We didn't find any. We weren't given any. I don't think we need it. In my opinion, it's there's going to be uncertainty, and I'm willing to accept the uncertainty, but I want that changed to may, because I think may is going to more accurately reflect the discussion and the facts as I understand them.
Change would to may?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the second change is in the paragraph, now therefore be it resolved, particularly State Senator Dalen Leach. I just want to skip to follow the example of, to me, that's immaterial. I don't know what those 32 communities were doing. To me, that's immaterial. If I think it's a good idea, I want to vote for it. So I want to delete, follow the example of, all the way through to adoption, and replaced it, consider and adopt if advantageous. Because again, we didn't evaluate the effectiveness of it. I don't need statistical certainty that this is going to be effective. There's uncertainty in this, and I'm comfortable. I want to support it, but I want it to be accurate. I think it will be more accurate if we make those two changes, and I think it will capture the spirit of both what everyone who wants it to do. So I'll put it out to the board for comments on those two changes. And then
Thank you. Accept those changes?
I think it's more important to get this up to the General Assembly as quickly as possible, so I'm
Okay.
willing to go along with those recommended
And with regard to
deletions.
confirming the facts, I'll be glad to hold off signing this, even if the board
Yeah.
passes, until I've seen
Okay.
the evidence. Okay?
I don't have any problem with those changes. I agree that the spirit of the resolution remains despite those changes. I would like to say that I strongly support the underlying substance and the merits of that substance of the original ordinance that we considered. I do have concerns about the preemption issue. I voiced them at our last meeting. And given the opinion that we've gotten from our solicitor, I think this is the wiser choice of course of action to pass a resolution at this point and await a judicial decision on this. And but I want to emphasize that the merits of the underlying ordinance, I really strongly support.
Further board comment? Public comment, I would like Radnor residents to comment first, and then we'll open up to people who do not live in Radnor.
Kevin Stockton, Wayne. I feel I have to offer a countervailing opinion. I feel that this resolution encourages enactment of yet another feel-good law, which appears to me to accomplish nothing. Or am I to believe that upon reporting a weapon stolen or lost or missing, that the investigators are going to leap into action and somehow find and return the device? I think the resolution rather dramatically makes reference to murdered police officers and criminal activity, and it acknowledges clearly that the perpetrators of murder and trafficking typically are already in violation of the law. Yet the entire focus of this resolution, if you look at it, is on the victim of the loss or the theft. I note that the resolution makes no reference at all for the perpetrators of such crimes to have a duty to report, and that the victim of the theft or loss is the only person or entity being given an additional duty in this. The resolution does not even pretend to apply to traffickers. It freely uses the words lost, it uses the word stolen, but it really is not targeted at traffickers. I find the utility of such an act to be somewhat ill-targeted, and quite frankly, I think the idea needs work to be useful. As an aside, I would like to point out that the members of the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners of this august body, in the online notes that I found in discussing the now tabled ordinance 2010-18, actually made the somewhat staggering leap of logic that, and I quote, "the loss or theft of a weapon can be seen as an illegal transfer of a gun," close quotes. It's an unattributed quote, but it's right there in the online records. This, I suppose, is a logic that in the same way would apply to your car being stolen could be seen as transferring ownership of your car without paying a transfer tax. It's totally illogic to view this way. I'm therefore somewhat concerned that more care be taken with and more reasoning employed in encouraging useful and properly targeted laws, not just laws that, in my opinion, this one suggests would be a somewhat feel-good law, but useless. It does nothing except make the individuals at Ceasefire PA happy, but I don't see that it would accomplish anything. So I would respectfully request that the resolution not be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman back here is next.
My name is Robert Palin. I live on Devonwood Road. I'm opposed to this resolution 2010-14. I feel that it obviously it seems to agree with the tabled ordinance of 2010-18, and it's just it will not do anything but penalize law-abiding citizens, I feel. It's, you know, one thing, pretty much this ordinance, the ordinance of 2010-18 would only come into effect if a theft were to occur, and that means the person would have his or her property stolen. Therefore, they would be a victim, and then there would be financial or jail time to be applied to the person. Then after that, after they've become a victim, and I just can't see any sense in that at all. Where in that scenario would the criminal be punished? You know, you're taking a law-abiding citizen and punishing them in place of the criminal, and that just doesn't make any sense to me. And it's just, I just really, you know, am amazed why anybody would want to bring such a law, you know, up. I really, you know, I understand the problem with the gun trafficking, but I don't think this really addresses it. And like I say, the only penalties given out would be to the law-abiding, you know, gun owner, the firearms owner, and I think that's just wrong, plain flat wrong.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Cindy Berlman. I've been a Radnor resident for about over 30 years. I get the Suburban and Wayne Times, and we all read what has happened. I don't remember ever reading in the 30-year period that we have such a great need where I've seen that guns have been used in crimes. I don't see a pattern here. And honestly, I want what's good for this township. Whatever other people are doing, they can do. But I think we need to look at our statistics to see if there's a need, to see if we have a history, and look at this as our township. I think many people go away for weeks at a time, and they might go to Florida. They don't know what's going on, and to penalize people for something missing, I don't think we have a history of that, and I'd like to get the statistics to see if we do. In 30 years, I don't ever remember reading anything. I mean, we had a few bank robberies, and then we have people breaking into cars, but I don't remember anything. So maybe we can be more statistical about ourselves to see if we need to support this in our township, and if this is something that pertains to us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm Nancy Limewand on Lowry's Lane. I just have a brief comment in support of the resolution and actually the ordinance behind it. It's in no way a threat to lawful ownership and use of guns in the township, but if the resolution even stands a chance of reducing the traffic in illegal weapons into the hands of potential criminals, then it's to the good. And I think we can't think of ourselves as an island. We're part of a regional community, and we should support the safety of the whole region. So, thanks.
Nance?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jim Higgins. I live on Chestnut Lane in the Township. I am treasurer of Ceasefire Pennsylvania, a statewide organization dedicated to the passage of laws that will reduce the amount of gun violence in our Commonwealth. As you know, this is my third time to appear before the board as treasurer of Ceasefire, requesting that the Board of Commissioners take action on the issue of reporting of lost and stolen handguns. We still prefer that the board enact an ordinance making it a violation of law to not report the theft or loss of a handgun within a reasonable time, say 72 hours, to the authorities. We understand from John Rice's position and his learned research that there are issues that are still open on the question of whether a home rule charter municipality can step into this area and legislate. So we respect that. So that brings us to the issue of this resolution. And there is a need for this resolution. There is a need to encourage our state legislature to act in this area. As your resolution states, there are over 1,200 deaths in Pennsylvania, I think it's homicides, annually from firearms. And many of these deaths are homicides. Many homicides are enabled by the illicit trafficking in handguns. And as I have explained to the board in the past, the device of straw purchasing is very, very commonplace, and it results in transferring guns lawfully purchased from dealers in Pennsylvania into the illicit or illegal gun trade. And what happens when that occurs, the way it occurs is that a person with a criminal record solicits a person with no criminal record, frequently a girlfriend, boyfriend. That person with no record buys the weapon and then for a fee transfers it to the person who has criminal activity on his mind. And it's frequently not one weapon, it's multiple weapons. When that gun is used in a crime, it's traced back by law enforcement to the purchaser at the gun show or at the gun show or gun dealers. And when the police go to that person, the person says, instead of admitting that they transferred it to a person who had no business owning or possessing a handgun, says that I lost it or it was stolen. This ordinance was an ordinance, it's now a resolution, but if our state legislature acts, it will plug that hole so that straw purchasing will no longer be an easy method for getting guns from legal purchasing situations into the illegal gun market, because a person will no longer feel they can do that because they know they'll be confronted by the police, and if they have not reported the weapon stolen or lost, then they'll be prosecuted and they can go to jail. So we would strongly urge the board to pass this resolution, get it to our General Assembly and to the governor as promptly as possible. And in response to Commissioner Curley's questions about some factual support for the three of the whereas clauses, we have that support. I have our Executive Director of Ceasefire Pennsylvania with me tonight, Joe Grace, and with your permission, Mr. President, I'll ask him to respond to those questions.
We'll do that, but after all Radnor residents had an opportunity to comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
You already had an opportunity, thank you. Any further Radnor residents? When everyone else has had their opportunity. At the end of, after everyone else had an opportunity to comment.
You don't have to pull it down.
It'll hear you.
I'll speak loud enough. I'm Mary Fran Ballard. I live on Luella Avenue. And my hope is that the board, considering all the information you've had, including Mr. Rice's advice, will take as strong an action as you can possibly take to restrict gun sales gun theft in this way. I would go a lot farther banning handguns, but there's some opposition, as you've heard. So I urge you to do as much as you can, and thank you for proceeding.
Thank you, Mary Fran.
Hello. I'm Linda Saul, and I'm a Radnor resident, and I think one facet of this proposed law or ordinance hasn't been emphasized. The first time that a gun is lost or stolen, and if somebody stole my gun and then went and used it in a crime, I would not be prosecuted. It would just be noted. The second time, as I understand it, it becomes a misdemeanor, and the third time it's used in a crime that I've lost or stolen, a gun has been not reported, lost or stolen, has been traced back to me the third time, I would then be prosecuted and it would be a felony, but not the first or second times if I missed, for some reason, reporting that my guns were lost or stolen. Thank you.
Bob, you're not going to come up? Nah. He was getting up anyway. We talked ahead of time.
Hi, I'm Jim Schneller. I live in Radnor Township. I wanted to comment, if I could segue, and I hope it's appropriate, but with a 3-time offense being the threshold for violation, it's a toothless bill as well that we'd be encouraging. I think ceasefire is really unbecoming to this township, and we should have nothing to do with it. What it is it's a circumventing of the state legislator's policy.
Excuse me, Jim, we tabled the ordinance. We're talking about a resolution to encourage the state to pass laws.
Yes.
And that's what your comment should be directed towards.
Well, that would be encouraging something resembling ceasefire. And I don't think we should have anything to do with bringing it before the legislature, where the legislature has had their time and seems to have their own priorities. I think the experts agree that ceasefire is not what we're being told.
Jim, this isn't about ceasefire.
Okay. I think experts agree that laws about reporting stolen handguns are generally not what we're being told, and we should not take part in a ruse. A ruse is strong language, but the legislation is aimed at continuing to persuade the public that gun owners are some type of out-of-place faction of the population, that they deserve to be overly restricted because they are somehow acting aberrantly. We have, in fact, a Homeland Security Department that has actually declared veterans to be people who are suspect in this country, and we should not participate in this kind of unconstitutional behavior at all. There are serious issues, and this is one of them in this day and age. Our Second Amendment rights are built into a beautiful document to ensure that our leaders remain responsible.
And Jim, once we recommend this to the state, those debates will be taken up there.
I understand, but why should our township have egg on their face for making some kind of a very flimsy and hodgepodge statement? It's also almost resembling a special interest statement for the reasons I just said. There's very little factual basis. So I would encourage the board, please, to not table that law, but to vote on it tonight, to vote to discard it, and second of all, to discard this resolution.
Thank you, Jim.
My name is Bob Whitehead, Radnor resident for 30 years. Believe it or not, I'm not totally unhappy. I was obviously against the ordinance. As far as the resolution to the state, my main problem with the ordinance was not with its toothlessness or whether, had an insidious purpose behind it. It was that, the preemption in the Home Rule Charter sets a bad precedent. And one of the previous speakers had said, we here in Radnor aren't, we're not an island. We're part of a larger community. To my point, that's true. Something like this passed here in Radnor makes us just that, an island. Where it's in Radnor it's an ordinance and it's not in Tredyffrin, and it is in Lower Merion and it's not. So it's that patchwork, quote unquote, of of laws that the Pennsylvania that Uniform Firearms Act actually serve to prevent. So everyone's got their opinions, obviously, about the ordinance, like it, don't like it, various degrees of like and dislike, I guess. I'm against it. I think that it the ordinance itself is already covered by a lot of laws, in areas where it should be covered.
But Bob, the discussion really is about the resolution.
Correct. So the resolution, I'm not totally opposed to. It's not an ideal. I'm not happy that the township that I live in is now uniformly in support of it, to the state. But all things considered, when it goes to the state level, I think they have the time and resources to really hash it out and study the language and see if we can build something that generally would be effective out of it. Maybe it could be a starting block, because if it generally could become something that's effective and useful in preventing crime, which I don't think it is now, but it could become, I'm all for it. So, I'm fine with it, and I think you guys are doing the right thing, in my opinion. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob.
Hello, my name is Colin Hingley, Belrose Lane, Radnor. I've been a resident for 36 years and fortunately have never found the need to own a gun, but I own a rather similar weapon. It's called a motor vehicle, and I'm obliged to contact the state every year and give its name and serial number and pay $36 for the privilege of owning that particular weapon. And I'm so disappointed that in this country a far more lethal weapon is not required to be reported every year, and even a tax or permit due on it every year, so that if you are an owner of a gun or guns, you carry the responsibility and the financial wherewithal to own that and be responsible for it. So I totally support your proposals to develop a groundswell, first in this particular township, which hopefully will get the state to wake up and make sure that gun owners are fine, they can own guns, but if so, they must be responsible for them. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Grace?
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Chairman, and thank you, members of the commission. Briefly, Commissioner Curley had a question about some of the facts that are in the resolution. I can both address them now and also pledge to follow up with something in writing to the Commissioner Chairman if that's helpful. As to the first issue of on average 1,200 Pennsylvanians dying each year in gun-related incidents in Pennsylvania. Those statistics come from both the Pennsylvania State Police as well as the Public Health Department, the health department of the state. They refer to homicides, suicides, and accidental shootings. And I can certainly provide that information in follow-up. As to the number of police officers shot and killed in the last decade, I can provide that information that comes from both the Pennsylvania State Police as well as the FBI. That's 22 police officers in the last decade, 7 in the last year. I'd like to make one final comment about that when I finish up. As to the number of states that have passed I'm not sure if the commissioner asked about that, but the identity of the states that have passed lost or stolen handgun reporting requirements, that is accurate. I can provide that citation as a backup information. The Pennsylvania State Police, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association, and the Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association all have taken public positions in support of a statewide lost or stolen handgun reporting requirement in Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner position was in the packet that I think we distributed to you at the meeting in February. I can provide the backup information on the other police organizations or police chief organizations. I think those are the factual issue, the facts or statistical issues that the commissioner asked about, and I will follow up the remarks that I just made here. Very briefly, why vote on this tonight? This is a resolution, and I've heard in the last few minutes, feel good, toothless, this is a ruse, and that this really just benefits special interests. Just two very brief remarks. The first address something that Commissioner Schaefer asked about at the meeting in February, which is that recently a community in Montgomery County in Pottstown, where, and I don't think the town was ever put on the record, but it was the town of Pottstown in Montgomery County. A father discovered several of his handguns missing. He reported them missing to the police. The police commenced an investigation, discovered that actually the man's son had stolen the weapons and hid them somewhere. By commencing an investigation, police uncovered that the son intended to use the firearms to commence shooting at Pottstown High School and then turn the guns on himself. He did not do that because police had been notified by the father that the guns were missing. That is sort of a textbook example of how we believe lost or stolen handgun reporting can assist police to both recover guns that have gone missing, to prevent gun violence before it occurs, and just we think that is a very good example of what this reform can mean statewide. Lastly, again, to some of the remarks about, is this just feel-good legislation, and what's the or even as a resolution, and what's the purpose of it? Today, unfortunately, I attended a funeral. It was a funeral for a man named Larry McDonald. Larry McDonald was a decorated firefighter in Philadelphia, but as importantly in the public sphere, he was the father of Philadelphia Police Sergeant Patrick McDonald, who was shot and killed in the line of duty approximately 2.5 years ago in Philadelphia by a criminal armed with an illegal gun that was transferred via the kind of iron pipeline of a straw purchase. A gun then transferred from state to state. It wound up in a criminal's hands, and that criminal used it to kill Police Sergeant Patrick McDonald. And you may ask why I bring that up. At the eulogy today, at the funeral for Larry McDonald, his daughter spoke eloquently and said that her father died of a broken heart, that her father couldn't get over the loss of his son, the Philadelphia police officer. That police officer was killed with a stolen gun, illegally transferred into a criminal's hands. So to those who would say this is feel-good legislation, I would say I think respectfully they should look at the example of the McDonald family in Philadelphia. And lastly, I don't think that any town or community in Pennsylvania is an island unto itself. And if Radnor Township chooses to make this decision, to pass this resolution, it will join nearly 36 Pennsylvania municipalities, cities, boroughs, townships all over Pennsylvania that are taking action and speaking with one collective voice, urging the General Assembly to pass this simple reform to help police crack down on the flow of illegal weapons into criminal hands. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Grace. Did you want to ask your question?
Hi again, I'm Cindy Brillman. I'm pretty new to this issue, so I'll be speaking more in generalities, and it was wonderful to hear what these gentlemen had to say, but the question in my mind is, we're talking about straw purchases, and that seems to be the major problem, not that they're being stolen from Radnor residents' houses. And are we addressing the straw purchases in this piece of in the recommendation? So I'm urging this board to look at that to see if we're really addressing what the coalition is talking about, which is illegally transferring guns, having people purchase them. Have Radnor residents done this? Is it something that we should be supporting when the main issue is straw purchasing?
Well, I
Maybe
think
it's fingerprinting, maybe it's electronic things that have to be put in place, but is it making the homeowner responsible? I'm not sure that's the answer.
Well, I think that what Mr. Higgins explained to us was that by enacting a statute which would require the reporting of lost or stolen handguns, it eliminates that excuse that straw purchasers have in their hands to simply say, oh, I lost my gun, or it was stolen. Why didn't you report it? Don't have to. Now that eliminates that excuse and forces these people who are straw purchasers to think twice before they put themselves in that position. I think that's the position, right?
And I also agree with some of the other speakers, but they're putting the burden on the homeowners. I don't see the connection, but I guess you guys do, but I'd urge you to take a look at a little more direct, a direct solving of this straw purchasing by other means other than putting it on the resident. Because they're not coming from the houses, they're coming from someone who is doing this and having a punishment for them. Just my opinion. I'm not
Thank you.
But
a Radnor resident.
The Pottstown situation did come from a house.
It did come.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
this
it
might
was
be a
still
good time
the
to bring,
child's.
I wasn't going to talk about this, but I believe it was about a year ago that a student stole a handgun from someone's house. That handgun was used in incidents throughout the township, and that handgun ended up in the high school. So this is a problem that happens everywhere. We're not an island. This is happening right here in Radnor. So I'm in favor of of passing the ordinance, but I'll be very happy with the resolution because this is something that hit home. This is right in our own high school. The gun was discovered on the side of a desk in the principal's office where it was stashed when the student was asked questions. This is a real problem that we're dealing with. And we're lucky it didn't end up in a death. So as much as I want to, hear both sides of this, when I hear of handguns being stolen from residents' homes in the township, being used in assaults throughout the township, and then being taken to a high school, I get alarmed at that. And I think any way we can close these gaps, I think it's important. So I appreciate your comments.
Okay.
Kevin Stockton. I wanted to amplify on my earlier comment regarding that this legislation or this proposal would not seem to encourage any control over the problem. As you noted, real problems require real solutions. The question is, had that handgun been reported missing, lost, stolen, would it somehow magically have been found before it made its way to the high school? I think that's a question worth asking. I'd also like to know if that handgun was in fact not reported lost or stolen in the first place. It's easy to say it ended up here, but there's nothing to say that it wasn't lost, that it wasn't reported in the first place. I've been listening to the comments from the fine folks at Ceasefire Incorporated. Their anecdotes, pull at your heartstrings, but the bottom line is, does this idea target anything useful? If we're talking, they're talking about straw purchaser issues, but to follow the logic of Ceasefire Incorporated, the only thing you need to do to get out of the bind of being a straw purchaser is simply, as soon as you transfer ownership to someone else, to report the weapon as lost or stolen. You're now perfectly in compliance. It's gone. Someone stole my car. It's gone. Someone broke into my house. So again, I question, how does this sort of a resolution do anything to control straw purchasing?
I think
It does not.
the questions you're asking will be left to the state.
Well, but we're encouraging them to do something about this.
Yes, we're encouraging them to look into this, and they will follow their processes and address it. The example you just cited, the second or third time you report a gun lost or stolen, there will be negative consequences associated with that, is my guess when the law finally passes.
Well, it just seems that you're looking to promote an idea which doesn't go to the root of the problem. And again, I feel it is, in fact, feel-good, useless, toothless legislation that you're promoting.
Well, then
Thank
ought
you
to-
for your
utility
opinion.
to that.
Yeah, thank you for your opinion.
Then make sure you go to the legislature and come up with some creative ideas that we can get to the root of the problem, because that's the issue.
Yes. Call the motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we amend Commissioner Schaefer's motion in the 5th paragraph to delete the word would and replace it with may.
Second. Accept that amendment? Elaine?
How about the now therefore clause?
And then I motion that we, in the now therefore clause, we delete the line to follow the example set by 32 Pennsylvania communities, 7 states, and the advice of every major law enforcement organization in the state by adopting, and replace it, consider and adopt if advantageous a statewide law requiring, and so on.
I'd just soon leave it in.
All right, well, let's vote on the first one.
Okay,
then.
the
Is that all
first-
right?
everyone-
So we'll vote on the first one,
On the may
on
change.
the 5th paragraph, on the would to may.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And I'll make the motion on the 8th paragraph with the change I identified previously.
All in favor?
Oh, he doesn't have a second.
Oh, yeah, do you have a second? Do we have a second?
No.
Okay, so that one,
I move the resolution with the amendment approved.
Second.
moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The next item is introduction of ordinance 2010-21 regarding a stop sign at Brook Road and Church Road.
Doesn't this stop sign exist? Is this just, we didn't have an ordinance for it?
That's correct. It's just housekeeping.
Move the approval?
Second? All in
Second.
favor?
Aye. The last item on public safety is an announcement that the school lane will be closed on April 12th to 16th. Now, when last time this issue was up, I thought we had a specific deadline, if you will, for the half closure of the road. Are we there yet or not? And what is this exactly that we're talking about tonight, AJ? Or
It's
Dan?
Dan.
This is utility work that's taking place. The curb on the school side is being removed and granite curb is being installed. And because of the width of the road or the lack of width of the road, in order to do it safely, we have issued a permit to close the road so that the work can be done and no one gets hurt. So there were telephone poles in the lawn area on the school side that were supposed to be removed several weeks ago, and they only came down last week, which allowed the developer to put the lines, those lines that were on the poles, underground. Contractor was concerned about removing the curb. It's actually a small stone wall. He was concerned about removing the wall and causing an impact to the poles and possibly causing them to topple over.
Enrique's here, it's no problem. Let's go.
No, the question I have is why can't the work be done at night? So it doesn't affect people bringing their kids to school and picking them up?
Well, the curbing is, as I said, it's a small wall, so it's more than just removing the edge of the curb. Today, they were jackhammering it and broke it up. Tomorrow it'll be removed. The problem is because it's so narrow that it would be difficult to keep someone who drove off the edge of the pavement without causing property damage to their car.
Dan, who's doing this work? Is this the township doing this work? Or
No, this is the-
part of the larger project?
Correct. This is the larger project.
And this is one of the pluses where we're getting a nice granite curb put in by the contractor, which really isn't required. Yeah.
I want to go back to my original question. Didn't we have a deadline for when the road was going to be opened back up again both ways?
April 30th.
Yeah.
Are we still within that time frame, Cass? Please.
Good evening. The answer is yes.
right?
It's already closed.
April 30th, it's all going to be done, road's going to be opened back up again, right?
The road will be open, the barriers will be removed, and the curb will be complete on both sides of the road.
Staff, take it, Dan, you're recommending this?
No, he's just giving us an announcement. It's already approved. He already gave the permit. He has the ability to close roads for the safety of the public.
If I may.
Just an announcement. We're not voting. It's already closed, Hank.
We had.
You're right, it is an announcement.
No,
At this point, it's a done deal.
That's right.
If I may, I think over the course, first of all, I would like to thank all of the commissioners, past commissioners and existing commissioners, for allowing the road to be one way for the last 6 months. I think we've been able to move the building very quickly, very safely. And I also realized that when the resolution was passed, I made a promise that no matter rain, snow, sleet, no matter what happened, this would be it. And I have to say all of our subcontractors have worked around the clock Saturdays to ensure that this would be the case, even though we had the worst winter in recorded history, and we've had the second worst March in rain and a number of other things. But we will have that road open on April 30th as promised. I also want to say this is not the first road closing that occurred over the last 6 months. And if you will recall, when the resolution was passed, we also agreed to pay a permit fee when and if the road had to be closed during that time for various reasons. Verizon closed it for 2 days to do their work, the underground work, to remove the poles. We closed it to set the steel. We were able to hire a larger crane to set all the trusses. We set all the trusses from the alley, so we were able to keep the one lane open while we set all the lumber and all the trusses on the building. So we've done a lot of things. You get very creative when you're dealing with this size property. So I would just like to say we've moved forward. We have all the stucco, the scaffold will be coming down before the end of the month. Barriers will be removed. We felt it was in the best interest of the township to complete this work, the curb work that is not part of our responsibility, but we're doing it because it's going to make the front of our property look nice. It's going to make all of School Lane look nice. And we thought it was best to do this work now before the 30th, instead of closing the road in May or June for another week.
Well, Kaz, I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful project when it's done. We'll certainly be glad when it is done. But in the meantime, if anybody has any complaints this week, they should direct them to you and not to the township staff or the police department.
Call me.
Or Bill. Yeah,
There's
call
nobody's
Bill.
going to complain. Call me.
Call Bill.
But Kaz, I just want to say is the building's looking great. It's a great anchor for Wayne, and it's a great project, and you're doing a tremendous job. And
Thank you.
we appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's
Any
it.
other question?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's it for public safety.
Public Works and Engineering, Bill.
First, we have authorization to go to bid to update sanitary sewer pumping stations. 3 of our 4 stations, equipment's 30 years old, needs to be replaced. The funds are in the 2010 budget, and I'll move the approval, the authorization.
Second.
Quick question, is that, is it design and construction, or is that just construction? What is that, Mr. Malloy?
It's actually to update the equipment that's actually in the stations, Don. There is 3 stations that are air ejection stations, 2 that are behind the King of Prussia pump, which is actually a physical pump which pumps up. But like I said, the equipment in those stations is over 30 years old.
So it's a replacement of the equipment. There's no design work associated with the station. No one's rehabbing the station. We're just replacing the equipment.
That's correct.
Very good.
Any further comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next is authorization to slip line approximately 2,250 feet of deteriorated sanitary sewer main, and it's in the 2010 sewer fund operating budget, and I'll move the approval.
Second.
Moved and second. Any comment from Commissioner?
Bill, a quick question. What is the useful life on the slip lining versus doing a replacement pipe?
The actual slip line now it's a thick plastic liner, and you're actually getting a better pipe because they're fused joints, so there's less friction. The saddles that are put in for the lateral hookups are also fused at so you don't get the separation and the chance of the inflow.
But is the lifetime 20 years, 30 years?
I'd say it's over 30 years. Dan, wouldn't you say?
It's much more than that. It's using a polyethylene instead of a PVC. It's well over 100-year life expectancy.
Okay.
And also, just to give you a little update, this 2,250 feet or approximately is also ACP pipe that is leaving some of the other pumping stations. As you know, in the last couple of years, we've had a couple stations, once it gets through the force main and goes to gravity in the ACP pipe, the hydrogen sulfide gases is breaking down the ACP pipe. And after those two stations, both King of Prussia and Highland Lane, after they failed, the pipe leaving those, I had the Woods, Hermitage, and the other station cambered down at Ithan Mills, and we're running into the same problem with that ACP pipe, and it's something that needs to be done.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next item is authorization to go out to bid for the 2010 road resurfacing program. We have a list of proposed streets, and this fund is contained in the 2010, this program, the funds for this are contained in the 2010 liquid fuel fund, and I will move the approval to go out to bid with Middletown Township as we do every year.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Comments from commissioners?
I have a quick question about this. Are these all the roads that, for all of 2010, that we've decided to pave?
This is actually a tentative list, depending on how the prices come back. This list may be shaved down. What you see there, they're pretty much in order of the conditions that they're in. So if we were to shave roads, it would start at the bottom and work towards the top.
So if a resident has a street that they want paved and it's not on this list, it'll be next year before it's considered, probably?
Yeah, it'll be evaluated next year. It's not a guarantee that it would be paved.
Right. Okay.
I have another question. I noticed apparently there are two streets in my ward on this list, but my ward is one of the most dense areas of the township. So two streets in my ward are probably equivalent to maybe, or I'd say 10 streets in my ward are equivalent to one street in another ward. Bill, do you also keep track of the square footage on these streets? And because it seems I have a couple streets like Larry's Lane seems to be in pretty bad shape. Is there any way?
Well, and the communication with the utilities, the gas company is looking to put in, and so is the water company, looking to update mains on those streets.
Okay.
And there's some of the reasons that things get pushed back. Lowry's, I've tried to do for the last couple years, and I keep getting conflicts with the utilities. I don't want to go in there, put a new surface on the road, and have a utility come in there and rip it up. It doesn't make sense.
Thanks.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye. And the last item on the agenda is an update on our curbside trash changeover. Bill?
Yeah, I was asked to give a little update, and so far the transition has gone well. We've had a few minor bumps, but nothing major. We currently have 354 people subscribed for the rear door collections. While the sign-up has slowed down, we're still receiving a couple a week. The holiday schedule was one of the biggest problems, but this is really no different than the problems we've had in the past with scheduling. It's a matter of paying attention to the calendars, paying attention to the TV, the scroll, and being aware when the holiday weeks are and when your stuff is supposed to be out for collection. The brush separation has helped the demands on the collectors, spreading the weights out. What we were doing on Monday and Tuesday, we're now doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with the loss of staff. So that's helping out. I'm in the process of looking for tub grinders right now. I've been talking with different different vendors to get a piece of equipment that I think we need. As you know, we got the $495,000 grant for this. We look forward to the purchase of this tub grinder. This will allow us to process all of our brush in-house, eliminating the tipping fees right now. Even when we utilize the county compost site down in Aston, we're still paying $23.45 a ton to them for processing. So having this tub grinder in-house and being able to process our own goods here is going to save us tremendously in tipping fees. But all in all, the program has gone well. I'm not saying there won't be any more bumps in the road, but we'll get through them. You know, we haven't had any major problems. You know, during the snow, we had to skip a few days, but that's to be expected.
I noticed on Good Friday week, Wednesday, the trucks went out and nobody had their cans out, and you came back on Friday. How'd you do that?
Well, what we did is when we went out for Friday's route, that we went through our Thursday runs. It was actually the Friday run, if I'm making any sense here. We went through there, and there was so little out.
Yeah.
And as I was driving through the township, I thought to myself, you know what? Look at all this stuff that's sitting out at the curb. So we finished up the routes probably by about 10:30 in the morning. And what I did was made them just go through their Thursday route. If there was something out there, we collected it.
Yeah.
Until we get the system ironed out, it was utilizing the staff, you know, getting their hours in, and we were able to do it without paying any overtime, so it worked out well.
Yeah, good. Well, we appreciate you getting that done. I have one other item, our application for county aid for 2010 road resurfacing. I'll move the approval.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it, under Public Works and Engineering.
Any old business?
I have two items.
Okay.
Actually, one item under old. Just want to mention to John Rice, I want to get moving on this SEPTA spillway. We've had to put this off because of a lot of reasons. If you could maybe try to reconnect with SEPTA and try to get a controlling interest in that.
I've been talking to their council on another project in another township. I think it's the same council. So I have a reason to talk to her tomorrow, and I saw your email. So I'll bring that up and see. I know there was some negotiation and then it stopped, and it sounded like there was an agreement, at least in principle, on what to do with that. So.
Okay, I appreciate that. We have Greg Vitale, I believe, had given us a $10,000 grant towards doing work on that site last year, and we are, Bill, you had mentioned that may expire by the end of next.
I'll have to look at the contract. Some of them, depending when we actually get the check in. I think the contract is through June 30th, but we may be able to get an extension based on when we actually receive the money. The check actually didn't come in until, I believe, late last year, but I'll follow up on that.
Okay, appreciate that. That's it for old business.
On April 13th, the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee is having a public meeting here. It starts at 7 p.m. They'd be very interested in having folks input. It'll be a discussion also of what they've done to date. And we'd like to encourage people. They have a survey available online. You go to the featured news on the Township webpage, and they also have hard copies of that survey here in the Township building and at the Senior Center, and we encourage people to fill them out.
I'd also like to re-announce a meeting occurring in this room next Monday, the 19th, from 7 to 9. It's a new community coalition being formed in Radnor to address issues of drug and alcohol use and related issues in our youth. The meeting will be a kickoff brainstorming meeting. We're going to be hearing from our school district representatives on some surveys and what we're finding is happening in the current state of affairs, and then talking about how we're going to move forward. We'll have our schools there, our township representatives, police, private school families. We've invited Villanova. We have a variety of people, and the Wayne Business Association as well. So hopefully it'll be a productive conversation and we'll get moving forward on this community coalition. So that's next Monday, the 19th, from 7 to 9 here in this room.
Further new business?
I just want to talk to Matt about, I had some residents on Locust Grove Terrace request the township look at the zoning of their properties. Apparently, the zoning was done a long time ago, and it's not classified what we believe to be correct. Properties are over 1 acre, and the zoning is not R1. So, Matt, is there anything you need from me to take just a first look at what's going on over there? Just need direction from the board?
Well, what I'll do, John, is Dan and I are gonna go over the area, or the map, and look at the parcel size, similar to what we did with Beaupre, and see if by rezoning, upzoning, if you will, from R2 to R1, if this will create any nonconformities, or if the decision is to go to R1A, or whatever the decision is, just to see preliminarily what type of, if any at all, any nonconformities will be created. I suspect there won't be because of the large lot sizes, but as soon as we put that together, I'll send that to your way.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Any further new business? Public participation? Colleen.
How are you? My name is Colleen Price, and I live at 352 Shimoni Road in St. David's. And I was here to talk to you about, actually, a point that Steve Palantonio brought up about the comprehensive plan, and really the need to address what goes on with planned institutions. The ordinance says that they're supposed to give us a 10-year forecast of what's going to happen. So the neighbors can be apprised of big changes that can happen overnight with colleges. We haven't seen any updates on any 10-year plans from Valley Forge Military Academy or from Eastern University, but we all know that they're under an agreement of sale, that there is a pending sale that will dramatically affect my neighborhood. So I would hope that as part of the comprehensive plan, that this is something that would be addressed. Maybe when you have an equitable ownership stake, that's a time when you have to give us a new update on what your plan is. At this point, I haven't been able to get any plans from Eastern University or Valley Forge. I've asked repeatedly. I don't know what's going on over there. Have you seen any plans?
No.
Didn't they give us one when they built the building on King of Prussia Road?
Oh, that one was, well, probably a good 3 or 4 years back at this point.
Yeah.
But in terms of plans for the
Right.
South Campus, what you're talking about,
Mhm.
After you and I exchanged emails, I tried to have staff, and I did have staff contact the two institutions to see if we could have a meeting. And as you know, they've already committed to a smaller meeting. I think Brian is attending that one sometime soon.
It's been postponed.
Okay. They apparently were not willing to come here or go anywhere else for a public meeting, probably because the reception that Valley Forge received at that planning commission meeting was not a very warm one. So at this point, we have no obligation, or they have no obligation, and we don't have any way to drag them in here unless and until they submit a land development plan of some sort. So it's a long way of saying that, no, we don't have any plans, and we probably can't get any from them unless and until they agree voluntarily to a meeting or submit a land development plan.
Well, what is the point then of having a 10-year plan, a 10-year forecast, if they can change their mind overnight and just say, we don't have to give you a plan because our 2-year period isn't up, we're not here at land development? I mean, the whole point of this is to give advance notice to the neighbors, and we're not getting that.
That is, in fact, one of the things that the Comprehensive Plan Committee is looking at.
Well, I would like to know from Matt, if you know, how recently have Valley Forge or Eastern submitted these plans? And are they, in fact, 10-year plans?
I think I can answer that.
Okay, Dan.
They both, the Eastern submitted a plan, as you just stated, 3 or 4 years ago when they submitted their last land development application. Valley Forge recently was in to do a subdivision on Farriston Road. They did not submit a long-range land development plan at that time. That was one of the reasons why the Planning Commission tabled the application and informed them that they must submit the long-range plan before the Planning Commission would relook at the subdivision on Farriston Road. When I last spoke to Valley Forge, which was probably 6 weeks ago, they were still working on it. At that point in time, I thought they were coming back to the Planning Commission, but they have since tabled that application 2 times.
Yeah, the difficulty with the long-range plans is that even though they give them to us, they're not restricted to what's on those plans.
But doesn't it say in the ordinance that if they do something in violation of that plan, you could basically not give them permits? I mean, isn't there some redress, or it's just sort of a, you know?
Toothless, to use a word that we use currently.
It's like when a developer comes in and he has to do a traffic study. If the traffic study says that the traffic is just terrible, we can't turn them down on that basis. They have to do the study, but we can't turn them down.
But you have to remember, we're talking about a piece of property that someone else is buying. If Valley Forge had submitted a plan for the South Campus, it would have been Valley Forge's plan.
Mhm.
I mean, Eastern's buying it. Eastern didn't own it, so how could they show us anything on that property?
But I
since
think
they
your
didn't own
original
it?
point, Colleen, is that there is a requirement, which currently doesn't do much for us because we've seen it repeatedly with Villanova, for example.
John, do you know if there's anything in the ordinance which has any kind of sanctions for going outside of a 10-year plan?
I'm looking at it as you're having this discussion. I mean, first of all, it's a plan. So it's a plan that, as any plan, a comprehensive plan, is a guide and can be changed at any time, even under this section. But what the ordinance does say, this is 28072D, talks about compliance with the plan. So upon submission of a long-range development plan, no development shall be approved unless it is in compliance with the provisions of this article, the other sections of this ordinance, and then it talks about, and substantially in accordance with the submitted long-range development plan or subsequent amendments thereto. So that's pretty much what you have in here. So there is a substantial compliance standard with whatever the plan is as it's been updated or any amendments to it. It would be relatively easy to make an amendment to an existing long-range plan. But that's only going to come into play when there's a land development plan that gets filed that comes in front of the Board of Commissioners. It'll start at the Planning Commission, and it'll come through the process that way. I mean, that compliance issue with that long-range plan will be an issue in the land development plan.
On Eastern's long-range plan submitted 4 or 5 years ago, they did have on there a recital hall on their campus.
Right.
The campus which they own right now. So I guess the question from your perspective is whether or not putting that on their long-range plan would preclude them from going outside of their campus, purchasing ground, and putting a recital hall there. And I don't know the answer to that question.
I think that's supposed to be the point of getting the forecasted plan. I mean, I don't know why we're asking for it if there is no remedy. And very in particular to what's going on with Eastern, I don't know if you're aware, there's evidently a pending sale to buy about 18 pretty much open acres across the street from me. That land, Valley Forge Military Academy bought, I think in 1952. It was residential property. They came before the zoning board and said, can we change this? And they said, well, tell us what you want to use it for. It's a very, very specific special exception. It says, where is this property? Well, it's this big old rambling mansion. It's right on the corner of Eagle Road. It's right across the street from where Valley Forge's main campus is. You can see it's 16 feet away, back and forth. How many students are you going to have there? 45 to 50. And what else? Some faculty housing. Based on that, and if you read it, you can hear the whole testimony unfolding when you read the special exception. It was never designed to be a concert hall or to be some massive development. They allowed this to come into this residential neighborhood under very, very limited restrictions, and that was the deal. And I think Valley Forge Military Academy should honor their deal. It's what Valley Forge Military Academy stands for, is honor and integrity. I think that's what they sell. So if that was their deal, I think they should honor it.
Colleen, you know the problem that we have as a board is we can't do anything until an application comes in. We really only have the bully pulpit to work in our favor.
Well, maybe we could use it a little bit just so they get an education, because I don't want them Eastern to come in here and claim that they have some sort of hardship that they didn't know. I have personally sent out a copy of the special exception to every member of the Board of Trustees on Eastern's board and on Valley Forge's board. I've also heard from people at Valley Forge that they didn't want to sell them South Campus. They didn't want to sell these 18 acres to them. They're trying to sell them the property that's in TE. That's on the corner, I think that's Upper Gulf Road. Could build a concert hall, they'd be next to a football stadium, they'd be across the street from St. David's Golf Club, they wouldn't bother anybody. That's what Valley Forge wants to sell to them. Eastern is insisting on the lot that's near us. And I suspect, they said that, how they would handle their traffic of 250 kids going one way, each way. It's 500 people coming across my front lawn, is that they would shuttle these people back and forth, which I really don't think logistically could work. But if they really do want to shuttle, then they should be going up to that corner that's in TE, up on Upper Gulf Road. And I think they're trying to go to this property so they don't have to shuttle. So I asked them, if people don't get on the shuttle, how will they get there? They're going to go through the park. They're going to take Fenimore Park over. Fenimore Park is restricted for park use. It's not for some private use for a college to make as their pathway. And after they get through the park, they're going to come across my lawn or my neighbor's lawn to get to this property. I mean, to me, it's outrageous, the plan that they're putting forth. And I've been trying to reason with them to go where they were supposed to go back up on what they call College Hill in the TE area. And I do have issues with Eastern College. I mean, they went through a massive expansion 3 or 4 years ago. I think they doubled, maybe tripled in size. They were supposed to put in sidewalks on Chamonix Road to alleviate all the students walking down Chamonix Road. And they said, we don't want to put the sidewalks in. We don't have the money for it.
That's not correct.
I've read the letter.
The commissioners have not, the commissioners have held it up, and I'm going to bring it up at the next meeting to put the sidewalk in, so.
Well, we would actually prefer not to have the sidewalk and really have effective shuttle service, because Chamonix Road doesn't want to end up being Aldwin Lane. We don't want to be the center traffic way for Eastern University as they continue to expand. And to me, to not build that, I don't know. If they really were concerned about safety, and that was going to be a main issue, they should have put in the sidewalks.
No, it's the commissioners that are going to put in the sidewalk. They're going to pay for it. We're going to put it in, and the commissioner from that ward has held it up. Okay?
Why would, I mean, if you wanted to put in sidewalks, you could do the same thing on my property. I have 200 feet of sidewalks. I mean, I don't shovel my own front steps. I'm certainly not going to go out and shovel 200 feet for students. I mean, it just seems to be a big burden to put on the neighbors so that we can accommodate Eastern, a private institution.
Well, we're just trying to make it safe so you can walk from the St. David's train station to the entranceway.
Then take the King of Prussia train station. It's just as logical. They can take shuttles from there, and it's probably faster for Cabrini kids. They could go in that direction. On top of that, after all this expansion, all this planning, they're 150 cars short on their own campus. They're leasing 150 spaces across the street from me on Valley Forge's lot. How do you go through planning and come up 150 spaces short? Either, the first year it's a miscalculation. After that, it's pretty deliberate. We really don't care. We know what we were supposed to be restrained to. I look at them and all I see is overbuilding, overuse, and expanding into my neighborhood. That's why, I'm here. I'm just trying to say, we're not bad neighbors. We're not people who are out there trying to stop Valley Forge. Valley Forge wants to sell up on TE area. That's great. If they want to, need help staying in business, we've already offered. My husband has an electrical contracting company. We've already been the Friends of the Willows. We did all free electrical work there. We'd be happy to do the same thing for Valley Forge Military Academy. We're not trying to impede anybody's growth and development. We just want it to be in a logical flow that works with the neighborhood.
Colleen, with regard to the special exception, we don't know what they're going to come in with, but assuming they come in with a recital hall or anything, any kind of land development on that campus, we think at the very least they would have to return to zoning to deal with the special exception and the conditions attached to that.
Well, I'm hoping that's what they'll be back before the zoning hearing board. Is that what you mean? Okay. That would be wonderful. And will there be planning? Will they have to go to the planning commission if they only put up one building?
Well, there's multiple issues here. There's zoning and there's land development. The zoning issue would have to be dealt with by the zoning hearing board. Any land development would go before the planning commission and this board.
Okay. That's what I'm really looking for, that the public really does have advance notice, and that the public can be educated on really what's going to happen here. And in terms of giving out notice, too, the people who will be impacted is from all the way up on, the tip of Chamonix Road, all the way down, Fairston, Fairview. All those people are going to be impacted by the growth of Eastern, and they're literally just coming in and coming across in a way that was never contemplated when Valley Forge got a little special exception to have a little dorm in a residential neighborhood. So I'm just hoping that there will be public notice, and whatever you can do to make sure that there is public notice, and maybe to extend it to anyone who will be impacted, not just the people in the immediate neighborhood, I would appreciate that. And my final point is too, it is open space. I mean, there is a possibility that the township might want to buy a portion of it, not all of it, or the Radnor Conservancy might want to buy a portion of it. I mean, right now you have 12 houses that are for faculty housing. They pay no taxes, and they send their children to our schools for free. It might actually save the township money if we got rid of the faculty housing over there. So,
Colleen, that will be on the agenda of the next Open Space Committee meeting.
thank you. Sorry it's late. I appreciate
That's
it.
all right. Thank you, Colleen. Entertain a motion to, Baron. This is public comment.
No, I know.
You got to come up front.
You never know how long it's going to go. You like to be sitting.
But
Baron
there's
Gemmer, Baron Gemmer, South Wayne. In the vein of development, I wanted to bring up a letter I'd written to Matt Bauman over the weekend. I'm not sure if you have copies of it, and I'm sure you probably haven't had time to digest it if you do. But just to give you the genesis of that letter, Dan Malloy, Matt, and I met on Friday regarding a zoning hearing board decision that was rendered, I believe, February 18th, and then the written decision was issued the 30th or 31st of March. The concern that all three of us have is that this was allowing a parking lot as a primary use on an R5 parcel, and I'm not going to bore you with the details of some of that, but basically the concern that we all share is, number one, it's the way the decision was made was contrary to the way Matt and Dan would treat that similar circumstance if it hadn't been before the zoning hearing board. But more importantly, it can have a detrimental effect in many parts of the township, basically where any parcel abuts a zoning district or is already a split zone parcel, that it could allow not only the expansion of commercial areas beyond what's already designated as a commercial area, but also potentially eliminate a lot of the buffering and transitions that are normally a natural part of the way commercial zones and all the zones are put together. So what I had asked in the letter is if you could, number one, to be aware of it, and also perhaps John Rice to take a look at it and get back with Matt and Dan and possibly myself for more background to see if it's something that you're also concerned about and would want to take some kind of action on.
Yeah, actually, I had an entirely different concern, was that when those buildings were approved, it was under the transportation concept.
The R6. Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea was that it would be a walkable thing and we wouldn't need as many parking spaces. So to approve additional parking spaces is a fundamental violation of that.
Yeah, there's
that principle.
And not to some background to that also. Some of the information, and I haven't watched the tapes in terms of when they were planning. Believe it or not, they're actually under what they were required at planning. It just wasn't looked at in terms of how they were doing the garage. So. Right. Some of the ones they may need because they were purposefully under, but regardless, this solution and what the zoning hearing board approved has implications throughout the township, and I think it needs to be looked at.
Yeah, we'll ask the staff to advise us on it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to adjourn. Yes? They're all
I just
positive.
wanted to announce it's Autism Month, and I was listening to the budgetary problems with the library and the fact that we have to fix the building, and I'd like to propose a little volunteer project that, as a therapist, I'd like to gather a few of the Radnor therapists. There are many lectures online just for the next week or two that we can download, and we'll get them together, get them to the library, and have a little autistic area for our parents so they can have more resources. It's free.
That's great.
Okay? Thank you.
Thanks.
So, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Marvin Kelly, resident of Radnor, and here representing the board for the Steeple View Homeowners Association. And I just wanted to see if the consideration could be made for the school lane when it's reopened to remain as a one-way road. I know when the road for construction was made one way, we thought that it was going to be somewhat inconvenient. What we found is that it has actually been more convenient and has actually helped with safety, because it is such a narrow alley, not really a main road, that there is such limited space. And there's no number of individuals who walk. There's a lot of deliveries made there because of the businesses, and to see if the consideration could be made that when it is reopened after construction, that it remain a one-way road, and would like that consideration to be made.
Who are you representing?
Steepleview.
The Steepleview Homeowners Association, so I'm a board member of that homeowners association.
What's Steepleview?
Steepleview is the condominium that I live in.
What, is this the new one on Luella and School?
No, it's not
where?
the new one, it's the existing one, so where the Lucky Duck toy store is.
Oh, okay.
Penny
Oh,
Olufsen,
okay. Okay.
Saxby's Coffee. So there are 10 residents within that, and not representing the other businesses or the other individuals who live there over some of the other businesses. Just anecdotally and talking with them and being a good neighbor, it really has been a consensus that the one-way street has been advantageous and really helping to promote safety and just a much better flow.
AJ, has this been looked at by staff traffic at all?
Yes, sir, it has.
What was the,
At this point, it doesn't meet the warrants for one-way, and we can reevaluate that once the new building is up, but I don't believe it's going to meet the warrants.
I also think that in the planning community, I believe there's a recognition that one-way is not safer than two-way, that the oncoming traffic actually has the effect of slowing vehicles and calms the traffic. The one-way gives clear paths and wide lanes, so cars tend to go fast. And then furthermore, I think there's clear evidence that speed kills. I would challenge the principle upon which you're requesting. Doesn't mean I won't evaluate it.
Yeah.
But I would challenge the premise, and that's where I'd have to start. I'm not convinced that one-way is safer than
If it
two-way.
could be evaluated, I think that it would be good, because as a resident who is also an avid runner, that as it's one way, no one speeds down the road. When it was two-way, people would speed because when it was two-way, they would use it as a shortcut pass-through. As one-way, it's not used as a shortcut pass-through, and so people aren't in the hurry.
It's my understanding from what we heard tonight, though, that the curb is being moved and it's going to be wider and more of a
I think there is a
suitable
curbing that's going to be added, but it's not going to widen the road.
I think the answer to your first question is yes, we will consider that.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.